head I feel thoughts build up until I can't hear. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head I fear. The thoughts build up until I can't hear. That my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper.
Hey guys, we're about to go into the sentencing, starting with Bethany Funk's statement, which has been read by Emily Aland. So let's go straight to that right now. Good to see you all here.
Your Honor, the first, and we're taking these in the order, victim impact statements in the order that the charges were listed in the indictment. The first charge being burglary. So we will have Bethany Funka's statement, and she has asked that her friend Emily Alant read that statement.
All right, any objection to that? All right, very well.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll be speaking on behalf of Bethany, and so, yeah, here it reads. My name is Bethany Funk, and I was roommates with Maddie, Kaylee, Zana, and Ethan. I not only lost some of my best friends, but I also lost a sister. Never in a million years would I have thought that something like this would have happened to my closest friends. I thought that we were going to wake up and go upstairs, see them and tell them how they had scared us and that they were going to tease us about how we were constantly scaredy cats and make jokes about it as we would go to Taco Bell like always. But sadly, that is not what happened and what turned out to be my worst nightmare. When I first woke up that morning, I had no idea what happened. I woke up around 7 with a terrible toothache, so I called my dad, who is a dentist, and he asked what I should do. He told me to take Advil, so I did, and I went back to sleep. I was still out of it and still didn't know what happened. If I had known, I of course would have called 911 right away. I still carry so much regret and guilt for not knowing what had happened and not calling right away, even though I understand it wouldn't have changed anything, not even if the paramedics had been right outside the door. I was so frantic that morning and scared to death, not knowing what had happened. And when I made the 911 call, I couldn't even get out the words. And from then on, I don't remember a thing. It was like my brain wiped that whole memory. That was the worst day of my life. And I know it always will be. While I was still in shock, trying to process the fact that my friends were truly gone, I had been attacked by the public. I was grieving, numb, and unsure of what had happened was even real. And at the same time, I was getting flooded with death threats and hateful messages from people who did not know me at all or know the dynamic of our friendship. Social media made it so much worse, and strangers made up stories to entertain themselves. The media harassed not just me, but also my family. People showed up at our house. They called my phone, my parents' phones, other family members' phones, and we were chased while I was still trying to survive emotionally and grieve the loss of my friends. I hated and still hate that they are gone, but for some reason, I am still here and I got to live. I still think about this every day. Why me? Why did I get to live and not them? For the longest time, I could not even look at their families without feeling sick with guilt. I did not know what to say or what to do. I was terrified that my presence just made their pain worse. And I was still here when their kid, their siblings and their friends, their loved ones should have been here instead. After everything happened, I was afraid to go into my own backyard or alone in my house. I was scared that the person who did this would come for me next. I was always scared that the media would try to catch me at any moment of any day, even when I was just walking around my house. I made my parents close all the blinds during the day so not No one could see me even in the slightest chance. I barely left the house, and when I did, I made sure I was never alone. I slept in my parents' room for almost a year. I made them double lock every door, set an alarm, and still check everywhere in the room just in case someone was hiding. And I still check my room every night before, and I double lock it. I have not slept through a single night since this happened. I constantly wake up in panics, terrified. Someone is breaking in, or someone is here to hurt me, or I'm about to lose someone else that I love. The fear never really leaves. For a long time, I could barely get out of bed, but one day I realized I have to live for them. They did not get the chance to keep living, but I do, and I will not take that for granted. So now every day I remind myself to live for them, and everything I do it with them in mind. I am still scared to go out in public, but I force myself to do things because I know that they would want me to keep living my life to the fullest. I am beyond blessed to still be here, and I refuse to take that for granted when they did not get a chance. Our house was not just a house, it was a home. It was where we laughed till we couldn't breathe, make meals, did crafts, binge watch reality shows, played games, and spent lazy days on the couch. It was movie nights, wine nights, morning debriefs, pranks, hot chocolate, cookies, and warmth. I will cherish those memories forever, and I will not let what happened erase how special our home was or how much those memories meant to me. Now, I would like to share some bits and pieces of who they were as people and some of the memories that we shared. One of my favorite memories was Halloween, and we all went to Sigma Chi. But instead of partying, we just sat in an apartment, talking and laughing all night long. I do not think I've ever laughed that hard in my life. We did not care about the party. We were just happy to be with each other. Zana was 1 in a million. She was the life of the party. But she was also the kindest and funniest person I knew. Everyone loved her because she made everyone feel so loved. She was just someone you always wanted to be around, no matter the circumstance. One of my favorite days with Zana was when she laid on the couch, when we laid on the couch together all day watching movies and snacking. Or when she, Maddie, and I would go and get margaritas, chips, and salsa. She would also light up a room with her presence alone. Kaylee had the most beautiful, radiant smile. And she was so kind, but also one of the funniest people I've ever known. She loved playing little pranks. She always had us laughing so hard that we could not breathe. She was so full of energy and life. I really believe that she could have ruled the world if she wanted to, and she would have been America's sweetheart. Ethan was the sweetest, most genuine guy. He was always smiling and always making other people smile too. Ethan was the kind of person you wanted around. He was so kind and easy to talk to, and just so fun. And the way he cared for Zana was truly something to admire. And really was proof that storybook love and true romances really do exist. It was not only obvious to me, but everyone that was around Ethan and Zana that they were absolute soulmates. Maddie was not only one of my best friends, but she was the older sister I would have always wanted. There was no one I looked up to or admired more than Maddie. She was truly a ray of sunshine, and everyone was drawn to her. She was so kind, loving, funny, fun, and passionate. She had the sweetest soul and wanted nothing but the best for everyone, and to love and show love to everyone. She took me under her wing and always made me feel so safe and included, and above all, loved and valued. She never failed to make me laugh or put a smile on my face. Still to this day, I am beyond grateful that she chose me to be her sorority little, and I thank God every day that I not only got to know her, but had her as one of my best friends. Honestly, I cannot pinpoint one favorite memory with Maddie because I have so many, and this would be a very long read if I did. But if some little memories with her that I cherish is when the two of us made a nice dinner and split some wine, or when we would binge watch Jersey Shore or Summer House. When we came up with a whole dance routine on Halloween and danced and sang all night, like no one was watching. All the late night walks home from going out, and just little shopping trips and so much more. I am beyond blessed that I had the chance to know each and every one of them. They changed my life in ways I would have never put into words. I hope that they are remembered for who they are and not what happened to them, because who they are were so beautiful, and they deserve to be remembered in the highest way. My heart breaks every time I go to text one of them or how badly I wish I could see and hang out with them. And then I remember I cannot. I will never be able to again. But I still talk to them in my prayers every single night, and I always will. I wish more than anything I could hug them one last time. And I wish I could tell them how much I love them. And even though I cannot, I still tell them every night. I will keep living for them as long as I am lucky enough to still be here. And they were all truly one of a kind. And they will be in our hearts forever and always.
Thank you. And please convey to Bethany my appreciation for her courage, and I hope that she heals.
Next is Dylan Mortensen. We're asking for some accommodations for Ms. Mortensen and that she be allowed to sit in my seat.
Sure.
All right, so before we get to Dylan, so Dylan's actually going to be reading hers in person. Bethany didn't. She had Emily read it on her behalf. But do you notice, Brian, during all of this? Can you imagine you've murdered 4 people, you're in a room full of people that care about those people, and you're the one that's responsible for this incredible tragedy. And it's pretty incredible how he shows no emotion. Virtue doesn't move. He's almost like a stick man, right? And he doesn't fold his arms. He doesn't. You would actually imagine that he'd feel shame and that he'd sort of look down. And I don't think he's really looked down at all. If anything, he's looked at the judge a few times. His eyes have moved, and then also he's actually looked at the camera a couple of times. Quite astonishing. Anyway, let's go on to Dylan's impact statement.
Dylan, just take your time, all right?
Thank you, Your Honor. What happened that night changed everything. Because of him, 4 beautiful, genuine, compassionate people were taken from this world for no reason. He didn't just take their lives. He took the light they carried it into every room. He took away how they made everyone feel safe, loved, and full of joy. He took away the ability for me to tell them that I love them and that I'm so proud of them. He took away who they were becoming and the futures they were going to have. He took away birthdays, graduations, celebrations, and all the memories that we were supposed to make. All of it is gone. And all the people who loved them are just left to carry that weight forever. He didn't just take them from the world. He took them from me. my friends, my people who felt like my home, the people I looked up to and adored more than anyone. He took away my ability to trust the world around me. What he did shattered me in places I didn't know could break. I was barely 19 when he did this. We had just celebrated my birthday at the end of September. I should have been figuring out who I was. I should have been having the college experience and starting to establish my future. Instead, I was forced to learn how to survive the unimaginable. I couldn't be alone. I had to sleep in my mom's bed because I was too terrified to close my eyes. Terrified that if I blinked, someone might be there. I made escape plans everywhere I went. If something happens, how do I get out? What can I use to defend myself? Who can help? And then there are the panic attacks. The kind that slam into me like a tsunami out of nowhere. I can't breathe. I can't think. I can't stop shaking. All I can do is scream because the emotional pain and the grief is too much to handle. My chest feels like it's caving in. Sometimes I drop to the floor with my heart racing, convinced something is very wrong. It's far beyond anxiety. It's my body reliving everything over and over again. My nervous system never got the message that it is over, and it won't let me forget what he did to them. People call me strong. They say I'm a survivor, but they don't see what my new reality looks like. They don't see the panic attacks, the hypervigilance, the exhaustion, the way I scan every room I enter, the way I flinch at sudden sounds. They don't know how heavy it is to carry so much pain and still be expected to keep going, and that's because of him. He stole parts of me I may never get back. He took the version of me who didn't constantly ask, what if it happens again? What if next time I don't survive? He may have shattered parts of me, but I'm still putting myself back together. Piece by piece, I'm learning how to live in this new version of life. It is not easy. It hurts, but I'm still trying. Still trying, and I'm not trying just for me. I'm trying for them, my friends. About a year ago, I had a dream about them. I got to say goodbye. I told them I won't be able to see you again, so I need to tell you goodbye. They all kept asking why, and all I could say was, I can't tell you, but I have to. When I woke up, I felt shattered and heartbroken, but also strangely grateful. Like maybe in some way that dream gave us the goodbye we never got. Still, no dream can replace them, and no goodbye will ever feel finished. He is a hollow vessel, something less than human. A body without empathy, without remorse. He chose destruction. He chose evil. He feels nothing. He tried to take everything from me. My friends, my safety, my identity, my future. He took their lives, but I will continue trying to be like them, to make them proud. Living is how I honor them. Speaking today is to help me find some sort of justice for them. And I will never let him take that from me. He may have taken so much from me, but he will never get to take my voice. He will never take the memories I had with them. He will never erase the love we shared, the laughs we had, or the way they made me feel seen and whole. Those things are mine. They are sacred, and he will never touch them. I get to feel sadness, I get to feel rage. I get to feel joy even when it's hard. I get to feel love even when it hurts. I get to live. And while I will still live with this pain, at least I get to live my life. He will stay here, empty, forgotten, and powerless.
Dylan, thank you so much for your courage. I appreciate it.
Next, we have members from the Madison Mogan family. First would be Scott Laramie, Madison Mogan's stepfather.
So that really was quite a moment hearing from Dylan. She's obviously been out of the media spotlight, and you can see why. And isn't it obvious why? Because she's traumatized. And in her absence, people have decided that's a sign of, that silence is a sign of guilt, I guess. And, this is really long overdue. I mean, it's important that she speaks for herself, but in the absence of that, is it really right that people have spoken on her behalf and taken her voice away? So, took a real act of courage to do what she's just done. And I think that's a really authentic moment in this sentencing hearing. I don't think there's anything wrong with observing that Bryan just seems odd. It's what we expect, but it still is nevertheless disturbing. It doesn't show any emotion. His body is almost like stuck, like a stick kind of thing. And although I do think at the time he committed these crimes, he felt satisfaction and he wanted to do what he wanted to do, I wouldn't be surprised if in court he has mixed feelings. There's part of him that remembers the good feelings and the excitement, but there's another part of him, I think, that does feel ashamed. I mean, I think if you think he doesn't feel anything, you're wrong. Does he feel the right amount of certain feelings? I would say no. The appropriate amounts, no. Anyway, let's go on to the next victim impact statement. Guys, thanks a lot for joining me here. Let's continue.
Standing by him is Karen Laramie, Madison's mother.
Thank you, Your Honor. My name is Scott Laramie. I'm Maddie Mogan's stepfather and the husband of Maddie's mother, Karen Laramie. I will read this victim impact statement on behalf of Karen and myself. Maddie was our gift of life, our purpose, and our hope. Maddie quickly became Karen's joy, identity, and purpose in life. I joined Maddie's life when she was 2.5 years old. Experience transformed me into a life of joy, love, and family. Maddie was bright, beautiful, kind, empathic. She listened carefully to others and was observant, seeing and caring about the hearts and the minds of all she encountered. She loved music and music festivals. She had a wonderful sense of humor. She excelled in school. She was an easy child to raise, almost never requiring discipline, and almost always giving us parental joy. One time Karen remembers disciplining Maddie as a little girl. Maddie responded, "You broke my heart," which of course melted ours. She had a keen wit, even at that young age. As she transitioned into teenage years, she prioritized us and extended family over many of the distractions that capture teenagers. She showered us with her presence and love at family events barbecues, picnics, birthdays, holidays, and others. She spent countless hours with her papa, her Uncle David, Aunt Nadine, and her other close family and friends. This world was a better place with her in it. As she reached adulthood, Maddie applied her studies to be a marketing professional, entering into an internship at Payne West, and started planning her professional future. As with all things, she involved Karen and myself in the joy of her journey. As she transitioned into womanhood, Karen and I continued to be astounded at this wonderful and accomplished person we had created. All parents dream of their children accomplishing more than them. We realized this dream, all we had not become, she was becoming. Karen and I are ordinary people, but we lived extraordinary lives because we had Maddie. Maddie was taken senselessly and brutally in a sudden act of evil. She was taken along with the young, promising, and bright lives of Kaylee, Zana, and Ethan. First, we felt disbelief. Next, we felt disorientation. Then we felt grief overcome us. Our grief is compounded even more for the Goncalves, Kernodle, and Chapin families. We speak of hope and healing, and we do have hope and some healing. But the vast emotional wound will never fully heal. Since Maddie's loss, there's emptiness in our hearts, home, and family, an endless void. After losing her mother in a car crash, Karen took years to grieve and recover. The feeling that her life with Maddie and A was perfect helped her to start to heal. Now, this is no longer perfect. After Maddie's loss, Karen felt like she was spinning out, emotionally collapsing into anxiety and depression. She sometimes asks, how am I supposed to go on when I've lost my favorite person in the world? I felt the same, and we continue to struggle. The loss of Maddie has impacted so many beyond our family. Her second family is her sorority sisters who grieve alongside us. She has so many close friends who suffer from her loss. We will continue to be her loss will continue to be felt by the Vandal community, including Vandal Solutions on campus, where she volunteered her time for others. It helps us to know Maddie is in heaven now, freed from the trials of this earth. We, however, continue to live on without the grace and support of her presence. We will grow old without our only child, our bright, beautiful friend and daughter. In the end, there are no words that can accurately capture the devastation of losing Maddie. We will endure, and we will go on. For Maddie, we will not let our grief consume us. For Maddie, we will continue to love and care for our family and friends, including the families of Kaylee, Zana, and Ethan. We will remain united with them. We can only hope that others out there suffering similar losses can look to us and see that we can overcome hatred, darkness, and evil. We know the law allows us to comment on the defendant and his sentence. As for his sentence, we support the plea agreement. Society needs to be protected against this evil. As for the defendant, we will not waste the words, nor will we fall into hatred and bitterness. Evil has many faces, and we now know this, but evil does not deserve our time and attention. We are done being victims. We are taking back our lives. We will turn our time, talents, and attention to hope, healing, and helping others, and to the future. We invite all those who have suffered with us on this to join us in our journey. We can make this world a better place. We can move on from tragedy. Adversity will visit us, evil will visit us, but we will overcome. We can and will endure. Karen and I express our gratitude to Your Honor and to the prosecution team for allowing us the opportunity to make this statement. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your courage, and I am so sorry for your loss. God bless.
Your Honor.
Your Honor, this is Leander James. He's the attorney for the Mogan family and victim advocate. He'll
But before we get on to that, it's quite ironic, this contrast. You know, we want to make the world a better place in spite of this tragedy. And what is a criminal doing? What is crime doing? It's making the world a much worse place, right? And it's because, in a sense, their world is already worse, the way they experience it. And so I must say, watching this again, it doesn't seem that Bryan is responds at all to the grief and the emotion and the that sort of side of it. But when the stepfather mentioned hate and bitterness, then he did respond. You actually saw him seem to be swallowing. He kind of made a facial, he sort of pursed his lips. And that is the wolf that Bryan has been feeding, the wolf of hate and bitterness. And we want to be careful we don't do the same thing. And we need to transcend, you know, when a crime happens, when tragedy happens to us, we need to try and do the same thing, which is very difficult, not become consumed by the dark side ourselves, right? Let's go on to the next impact statement. Chelsea, good to see you.
be reading a statement for Karen Laramie.
May it please the court, counsel. My name is Leander James. I am the pro bono counsel for Karen and Scott Laramie. Karen has asked me to read this statement into the record. I thank my husband, Scott, for his statement, his courage, and his unending love and support during this dark time. While words are inadequate to capture the impact of this horrific crime on our family, he expressed it as best anyone could. For Maddie's sake, I will add my supplement statement that incorporates additional impact in the context of my extended family. I am grateful to Maddie's great uncle, BRYAN KOHBERGER, for assisting me with the difficult task of putting our pain into words. For me and my extended family, Maddie was our hope and our light. Her beauty, both outside and in, shone its light upon everyone with whom she came in contact. Her beauty, she carried that hope and light into the future for our entire family. We have memories of our Maddie and grief and pain at her being taken from our presence. Any one of us would have given our own light to have been outshone by hers. We now look to our Creator to know that her light continues where we look to see her in his presence. Those who commit evil for their own twisted gains and purposes truly defile the efforts and sacrifices of mothers, fathers, families, teachers, clergy, public servants, service members, and all those who commit themselves to the greater good, freedoms, and the future light of our nation. Condemnation falls heavily upon those who squandered the lives of our future hopes and dreams. Some may offer forgiveness for what the defendant has done. However, we cannot at this time, or perhaps ever, nor will we ask for mercy for what he has done. His acts are too heinous. The agony and grief he has caused, too great. But we will waste no further words or thoughts on him. For Maddie's sake, we will move on. We will do our best to carry Maddie's light into this world and make it a better place. I thank the court and the prosecution for allowing me the opportunity to make my statement. And I thank all those who have and will support my family and the families of Kaylee, Zana, and Ethan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Slarmy.
Right. Again, what a wonderful sentiment in the face of such horror and tragedy. Let's try and make the world a better place. And I want you to think about that in the context of us, the true crime community, but also true crime creators. Are true crime creators making the world a better place? In terms of this case, where you had these horrible murders of 4 people, and then you see 2 more being victimized as well. 2 more, as you've just heard, this horrible burden being made worse by whom? To some extent the media, but you hear them calling out social media, right? And that is certainly the approach I have, which is, because I've studied law, and certainly the approach I take when I write books, and even every video I sort of make, I want to sort of offer some lesson, some insight, something that you take out of the whole thing that can help make the world a better place in a very negative space. And yet there are people out there that opportunistically, cynically profit from this. Are they trying to make the world a better place, or are they trying to make the world a better place for themselves, which is just what the criminals are doing, right? Just something to think about. When you're watching a true crime video, ask yourself, is this person making the world a better place? Is it making me a better person consuming this? What am I learning? Is it edifying me in any way? Certainly finding out what really happened is important, but not at the expense of our humanity, right? Anyway, let's continue.
Appreciate it.
Next is Ben Mogan, the father of Maddie Mogan.
Yes, of course.
Actually, Your Honor, it'll be Kim Cheeley, the grandmother of Maddie Mogan.
My name is Kim Cheeley. I was Maddie Mogan's paternal grandmother, as Ben Mogan, her father, is my son. I'm here today with my sister Lori Cheeley, Maddie's great aunt, and my son Ben Mogan, and my daughter-in-law Corey Hatrock. I'd like to begin by thanking a number of people involved in bringing this case to closure. In my daughter's words, the plea deal the prosecution team reached this month is one that punishes the perpetrator of this horrendous crime, protects the public from further harm, and allows all of us who knew and loved these kids the time to grieve without the anxiety of the long and gruesome trial, the years of appeals, and potential for mistrials along the way. My family and I are so grateful to Bill Thompson and his prosecution team for their dedication and painstaking work that forced the perpetrator to admit his guilt. We want to thank the Idaho State Police, the Moscow Police Department, the FBI, and Judge Hippler. We'd also like to thank the University of Idaho officials who have treated the families of the victims with such dignity and kindness, and who have honored the 4 victims beautifully. Maddie was my first grandchild, so when she was born, all her grandparents had the distinct pleasure of deciding what we'd like to be called. I chose Nana, pretty original. But when Maddie was about a year and a half old, her papa, Ben's dad, and I were planning to visit the new little family in Oregon. Maddie didn't have an extensive vocabulary at the time, but for some unknown reason, she called bananas ba-deedle-deedles. When Karen and Ben told her Nana was coming to visit, she figured, I say deedle-deedle for that word. So I became deedle-deedle, shortened to Deedle when she was about 6 or 7, and I was Deedle all her life. I don't think her stepdad, Scotty, ever knew my given name was Kim. Maddie's and my birthdays were one day apart, and a couple years before she was killed, she gave me this necklace with Deedle and Maddie engraved on it, and I added an angel wing, and it's one of my treasured possessions. I also got an angel wing tattoo, never thought I'd see the day, but along with many members of our family, replicating the one that Maddie and her sorority sisters had. I wanted mine where I could see and touch it often. From preschool through grade school, I stopped teaching piano lessons early on Wednesdays and picked Maddie up for bubble baths, brownies, and books. It was our special time together. And she went home those nights in her jammies with a pan of warm brownies for her family. Although Karen and Scotty raised Maddie and did such a lovely job of parenting, we Mogans were lucky to have her for holidays and many other family gatherings. We'll always have our treasured memories of Maddie growing up in our big extended cooperative family. And I thank Karen and Scotty Laramie for being so generous and open and sharing Maddie with her Mogan side of the family. When the 4 kids were murdered, the foundation fell out of our world. Initially, the fear was truly debilitating. The first 6 weeks were excruciating. Despite the vigils, memorials, candlelight gatherings of students, friends, family, community members. After the arrest, in the past 2.5 years, my family has lived with grief, with the effects of traumatic grief, of which I was blissfully unaware before all of this. I now have a stack of books on grief. I've attended grief classes at hospice. I've tried EMDR, a technique that helps replace disturbing visions with something more comforting. My son, Ben, his 2 sisters, Maddie's aunts, and I have all experienced depression and anxiety and sleep disturbance, requiring medical intervention at times. We've all sought counseling off and on. The struggle with media attention was extremely difficult, especially for Ben. No one should live through the violent murder of one's child. Some days it's beyond me how the parents of these kids are still upright. I'm thankful for the strong families and communities that are supporting the survivors. At the time, I could think of only 2 blessings surrounding the horrific murders. One was that Ben was living with my partner Tom and me at the time, and that we could support each other emotionally through it all. Sadly, Tom died a year ago of a rare brain cancer, and he won't be here to see justice served. He was our family's rock, and we all miss him every day. A second blessing is that my mother died of COVID several months before the kids were killed, and she didn't have to live through the horror. It was difficult to identify blessings. So we've all lost our dear child and a future with her. I ache for the loss of the dreams that she and her true love, Jake, held. And my heart goes out to Karen and Scotty and your side of Maddie's family. You've had more than your share of loss. My heart aches for the kids' roommates and the families of the other victims, and also the family of the perpetrator. Going forward, we Mogans are choosing to put our energy and focus into honoring Maddie's too short life and sweet spirit by celebrating Maddie May Day, which my two daughters established. On May 25th each year, Maddie's birthday, we encourage folks to do random acts of kindness in Maddie's name. In my daughter Katie's words, may we all protect our peace in whatever way possible, unite in community, and focus on joy. Please do an act in kindness in Maddie's honor during this week, so a glimmer of Maddie's light may live on. Thank you.
Thank you, and appreciate your courage, and bless you and your family.
Thank you.
Now it's Ben Mogan, Maddie Mogan's father.
I'm Benjamin Mogan. I'm Maddie's dad. And first, I just want to say thanks to all the people that helped bring this all to a close. I know it's not the resolution that everyone wanted, but I think that that everyone worked so hard, and we really appreciate all their efforts. It was such a hard thing to go through for everybody. Maddie was my only child that I ever had. She's the only great thing I ever really did, and the only thing I was really ever proud of. And I thought we would have the rest of our lives together to be together and know each other, and I took for granted the times she was in college, and I thought, oh well, we'll have the rest of our lives to do all the stuff that we're supposed to do, and she was just about done. She actually earned all of her credits for her college degree, and Karen and Scotty and I got to go and get her diploma that she actually earned, and she served every bit of that. And but I thought that was going to be just the beginning of long life together, and we never got that. Karen and Scotty did such a great job raising her after Karen and I split up, and I'm so thankful for Scotty and the role that he played in her life when I wasn't able to. But we got to spend a lot of great times together, Maddie and I. She was my favorite person to go to a concert with. We got to see some fun shows together, and I told her, if there's ever a show that you want to go to, you let me know, and I'll get you tickets for you and your friend, or if we want to go together, we'll make it happen. And my favorite memory with her was when the Mac Miller show sold out here in Spokane, and everyone wanted tickets, no one could get them, and they, on the last day before the show, they did a radio thing, and I got 4 meet and greet tickets for Maddie and her friends, and me to go and see the show, and that was her favorite artist at the time, was Mac Miller, and he's gone now too. And my little cousin Zach drove us all there that night, and he's gone too, tragically. And anyway, the last thing that she ever wrote to me was this Father's Day card, and I'm so glad I still have it. I'm just going to read what she said. It says, "Happy Father's Day. I hope you have the best day. I can't wait till we can hang out again soon. I'll be in Coeur d'Alene, 624 to 74. Hopefully we can find a time then. I love your birthday card that you sent me, by the way. Maybe we can see a concert sometime soon. I'd love to see the gorge when it's not so smoky out. I hope you're doing well. I'm proud of how far you've come. Thank you for always encouraging me to do my best. Love you lots and lots. Love, Maddie May." She did encourage me to not just to do my best, but to live on. I went through a lot of issues with addiction and with substance abuse, and when I wasn't wanting to live anymore, she was what would keep me from just not caring anymore, and knowing that she was out there and that she was just such a beautiful person kept me alive a lot of rough moments, and I'm so glad that she was able to meet Jake. He was the only one that I actually ever got to take her to the gorge. They went and saw Watershed together, and they had a heck of a time. I'm glad she got to. That's a really special place for me, and she always wanted to work out there with me in the summer sometime. She never got to, but at least she got to see it once with Jake. He was such a great guy. He is such a great guy. And I really wanted to see what a future with them would have looked like. I'll never be able to replace her. I wrote a bunch of stuff. I just don't know what to say right now. I just miss her so much, and I just love her more than anything. And it shouldn't have happened. And a death sentence is one thing. When it's going to happen, and it's going to be all gentle and stuff. But life without parole, with a building full of people that all just want you to not be around anymore, and winking at every morning, not knowing if that's the day they're going to pull your card. I mean, it's not a very nice sentence either. So, I don't know. I just love you, Maddie, and wish you were still here.
Thank you so much.
So what's definitely, I think worth mentioning here is that Maddie's father, he said it himself, that he struggled with addiction, and you can see it. You can see how addiction has affected him, how it's changed him, how it's ruined him to an extent, how it's ruined his life. And credit to him that he had the courage to stand up and speak on his daughter's behalf. But I can't help wondering what Brian is thinking about this, because Brian was an addict as well, a heroin addict. And I'm sure my first thought when Ben Mogan started speaking was that I'm sure Brian recognized the symptoms of that. And how ironic that the person that Brian killed was the person that sort of saved her father. The best thing in the one drug addict's life was, in a way, the best thing in another one's, in a sense. Except that Maddie was, I think, helping her biological father, and something that, or someone that Brian was obsessing over. And I do think that's, in a way, the unspoken story about this case is drug addiction. Obviously, people have their criminal impulses, but one way to prevent people from becoming isolated and becoming worse than what they already are is by allowing them to become addicts, by people allowing themselves to become addicts. And then look at what happened to Brian. I think he came out the other side and wanted to rejoin society, only to find that he couldn't. Anyway, let's continue. Hey, Karen.
Your Honor, next would be members from the Kaylee Goncalves family. First will be her father, Steve Goncalves.
Turning the lectern towards Brian.
Today, we are here to finish what you started. Today, you've lost control. Today, we are here to prove to the world that you picked the wrong families. The wrong state, the wrong police officers, the wrong community. You tried to break our community apart. You tried to plant fear. You tried to divide us. You failed. Instead, your actions have united everyone in their disgust for you. I just learned from these lead investigators, to their shock, they worked in an investigation and actually worked with Pennsylvania police officers and the federal FBI. You united everyone. Everyone was united after you. None of us are divided. We are united in our disgust and our love for these children. Today you have no name. Because when this all started, we all came together and we said, let's stop even talking about his name and just use initials. So even the media just calls you BK. That's all you are. Looking back when the police officers knocked on my door, told me what happened to my child, told me what happened to Maddie Mae, I don't think he was even out of the driveway before my kids turned around, looked at me and said, what do we do, Dad? I told them, you get to work. You get your ass to work. And we started calling, we started texting, we started emailing. And you know what? Within hours, we had your white car on the camera. We knew from the very beginning we had you. Police officers tell us within minutes, they had your DNA. like a calling card. You were that careless, that foolish, that stupid. Master degree, you're a joke, complete joke. But we took this disaster and we did what we could. We put everything online. We took our kids, we took our images, we took everything that they did, their videos, their photos, the girls' pranks, Ethan singing. We put it out there, we shared it with the world. And the world united. And all they ended up, when they talked about this case, is they talked about Kaylee Jade, Maddie Mae, Zana, and Ethan. Everything what these people meant to us, a father, a mother, a brother, a sister, we shared that with our community. Then we shared it with our state. We shared it with the country. And eventually we shared it with the world. The world's watching because of the kids, not because of you. Nobody cares about you.
Oh, I see I'm muted. Sorry about that. So yeah, the exactly what Steve is saying here about you are nothing, and you know the 4 victims, everybody cared about them, nobody cared about you. That is exactly why Bryan committed this crime. And bear in mind that this was the case before he committed the crime as well. It's not just where we are now. And so obviously, Steve Goncalves has lost a daughter and a terrible crime has happened. But I think you've got to think about what took place before that, and you obviously, Bryan is responsible for his failures, but to some extent, the way that society is, because you've heard all the impact statements, almost everyone before Steve has been able to rise above this and say, let's move on and make life better. Is this sort of thing where you confront the killer, making life better? Again, it might make life better for you in that moment. You might feel that's what you need. But I think it is something worth considering. Because hate does beget hate. Someone was saying an eye for an eye. I hope Bryan gets killed in prison. An eye for an eye leaves everyone blind. I do think it's something worth thinking about. It might not be a popular thing to talk about, but is it the right thing to talk about? In other words, going forward, how do society, how do classrooms, how does a community help prevent people that could become BRYAN KOHBERGER from becoming BRYAN KOHBERGER, right? Is it in this way where you confront him and kind of bully him and humiliate him and put him in his place? Is that the way to do that? Is it? Maybe it is. Is that going to prevent the bullied and humiliated from becoming criminals in the future? This sort of approach.
You're not worth the time, the effort to be remembered. In time, you will be nothing but 2 initials forgotten to the wind. No visitors, nothing more than initials on an otherwise unmarked tombstone. From this moment, we've all started. From this moment, we will forget you. We want to all leave in closing. One last thing. You picked the wrong family, and we're laughing at you on your trip to the pen. That will be today or tomorrow. I'll close with, God bless all the men and women that worked on this case and all the hard work that you guys did. You guys allowed us to grieve and allowed us to get through this. The amount of work that you guys put together and the way that you guys put it together was beautiful. There was hard times to be expected, but thank you all. God bless.
Thank you.
Your Honor, next is Stephen Goncalves, Kaylee's brother.
Stephen's actually gonna pass. I'm gonna go.
Okay. Alivea Goncalves, Kaylee's sister.
Hello, I'd like to start by thanking the court for allowing me the time and opportunity to speak today. My name is Alivea, and I'm the big sister of Kaylee Goncalves, and I was blessed to love Madison Mogan as a sister too. I'm not here today to speak in grief. I'm here to speak in truth. Because the truth is, my sister Kaylee and her best friend Maddie were not yours to take. They were not yours to study, to stalk, or to silence. They were two pieces of a whole, the perfect yin and yang. They are everything that you could never be. Loved, accepted, vibrant, accomplished, brave, and powerful. Because the truth about Kaylee and Maddie is they would have been kind to you. If you had approached them in their everyday lives, they would have given you directions, thanked you for the compliment, or awkwardly giggled to make your own words less uncomfortable for you. In a world that rejected you, they would have shown mercy. Because the truth is, I'm angry. Every day I'm angry. I'm left shouting at the inside of my own head everything I wish I could say to you. The truth about me is when I heard the news, I didn't cry. I listened for them. I promised them I would, that I would fight for them, that I would show up no matter what it cost me. I swore I'd never let them feel alone. Because you see, I've always been their heavyweight. I've always been the one to fight the battles they didn't feel ready to fight themselves. All it ever took was a call, and they knew I would handle it for them, no matter the time, no matter the cost. They could wave their white flag because they knew I would never back down, not for them, and not even death could change that. Somewhere along the line, I started to think about what I would say to them if I was given just one last chance. If I could gather enough heartbreak or love or sacrifice or whatever it took to get just one message across, what would I say? Throughout this entire process, I've written my feelings down at every moment, my wishes, my love, my denial, my anger. And as one final act of love, I'd planned to read these thoughts, even jarring and discombobulating and not even making sense. Because for me, that was true love. As bare and as naked as it could be, not laced in pretty words or dressed for the occasion, but written through bleary eyes at 2 a.m. with clenched fists, angry at this reality. My true final act of love was to continue on without them, for them. That dream to read aloud my love to them, to bring meaning through pain, was the latest blow in realizing you don't deserve it. And Kaylee and Maddie don't need it. Kaylee and Maddie have always known my love, and they would never ask me to prove it by further victimizing myself to a defendant who has shown no guilt, no remorse, no apprehension. They would say to me, why would you give the satisfaction of showing vulnerability now? You promised you would never back down. And for that clarity, I'm thankful. I won't stand here and give you what you want. I won't offer you tears. I won't offer you trembling. Disappointments like you thrive on pain, on fear, and on the illusion of power. And I won't feed your beast. Instead, I will call you what you are. Sociopath, psychopath, murderer. I will ask the questions that reverberate violently in my own head, so loudly that I can't think straight most any day. Some of these might be familiar, so sit up straight when I talk to you. How was your life right before you murdered my sisters? Did you prepare for the crime before leaving your apartment? Please detail what you were thinking and feeling at this time. Why did you choose my sisters? Before making your move, did you approach my sisters? Detail what you were thinking and feeling. Before leaving their home, is there anything else you did? How does it feel to know the only thing you failed more miserably at than being a murderer is trying to be a rapper? Did you recently start shaving or manually pulling out your eyebrows? Why November 13th? Did you truly think your Amazon purchase was untraceable because you used a gift card? How do you find it enjoyable to stargaze with such a severe case of visual snow? Where is the murder weapon? The clothes you wore that night? What did you bring into the house with you? What was the second weapon you used on Kaylee? What were Kaylee's last words? Please describe in detail the level of anxiety you must have felt when you heard the Bearcat pull up to your family home on December 30th, 2022. Which do you regret more? Returning to the crime scene 5 hours later, or never, ever going back to Moscow, not even once, after stalking them there for months? If you were really smart, do you think you'd be here right now? What's it like needing this much attention just to feel real? You're terrified of being ordinary, aren't you? Do you feel anything at all? Or are you exactly what you always feared? Nothing. If you're so powerful, then why are you still hiding, defendant? You see, I'm here today as me. But who are you? Let's try to take off your mask and see. You didn't create devastation. You revealed it in yourself. And that darkness you carry, that emptiness, you'll sit with it long after this is over. That is your sentence. And it was written on the wall long before you ever pled guilty. You didn't win. You just exposed yourself as the coward you are. You're a delusional, pathetic, hypochondriac loser who thought you were so much smarter than everybody else. Constantly scolding, turning your nose up to grammar mistakes, nitpicking and criticizing others. You wanted so badly to be different, to be special, to be better, to be deep, to be mysterious. You found yourself thinking you were better than everyone else, and you thought you could figure out the human psyche and see through it, all while tweaked out on heroin. Lurking in the shadows made you feel powerful because no one ever paid you any attention in the light. You thought you were exceptional, all because of a grade on a paper. You thought you were elite because your online IQ test from 2010 told you so. All of that effort just to seem important. It's desperate. There is a name for your condition, though. Your inflated ego just didn't allow you to see it. Wannabe. You act like no one could ever understand your mind, but the truth is you're basic. You're a textbook case of insecurity disguised as control. Your patterns are predictable. Your motives are shallow. You are not profound. You're pathetic. You aren't special or deep, not mysterious or exceptional. Don't ever get it twisted again. No one is scared of you today. No one is intimidated by you. No one is impressed by you. No one thinks that you are important. You orchestrated this like you thought you were God. Now look at you, begging a courtroom for scraps. You spent months preparing, and still all it took was my sister in a sheath. You work so hard to seem dangerous, but real control doesn't have to prove itself. The truth is, The scariest part about you is how painfully average you turned out to be. The truth is, you're as dumb as they come. Stupid, clumsy, slow, sloppy, weak, dirty. Let me be very clear. Don't ever try to convince yourself you mattered just because someone finally said your name out loud. I see through you. You want the truth? Here's the one you'll hate the most. If you hadn't attacked them in their sleep, in the middle of the night, like a pedophile, Kaylee would have kicked your fucking ass. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Christy Goncalves, Kaylee Goncalves' mother.
Right before Kaylee's mother speaks, it's just one of those, again, ironies of life. Because Steve moved the lectern to have it facing Brian, it's literally moved the rest of his family entirely off screen, or almost entirely off screen, because it's been moved. And so this important moment that I'm sure they want the world to see is literally almost like entirely off camera. Life can be quite strange sometimes, right?
Thank you, Your Honor. I never imagined having to speak to someone so devoid of humanity. For a long time, I didn't think I'd find the words low enough to meet you where you are. But now I realize this isn't about you. It's about what you've done to me, and I need you to hear it. When you murdered my daughter, Kaylee J. Goncalves, you didn't just take her life, you shattered others. You attacked what you could never be, and in doing so, you left a trail of devastation far beyond that house. You stole my peace. You've altered my every waking moment, every sleepless night, the way I view the world, people, safety, trust. It's all been changed by your cruelty. I no longer recognize parts of myself. Joy is harder to find. Laughter feels foreign. The world moves forward, but I'm suspended in a place of sorrow and rage. You've taken from me something that can never be restored. The grief sits with me every day, some days quietly, and other days so loud it drowns out everything else. The emotional toll you've inflicted on me is immeasurable. I live with a constant ache, with birthdays that are now memorials, with holidays that feel hollow, with empty chairs that scream louder than words ever could. I am forever changed. But for you, as a person working on a PhD in criminal justice, you really didn't think this one through. You're not that good. In fact, you're not that good at anything. You couldn't secure a job. You couldn't get along with others. You couldn't even get a female to look in your direction. All because you are pathetic. Now you're a joke in this courtroom. I wish I could crown you with a jester hat to complete your orange jumpsuit clown look. A dead killer doesn't kill again. So while I'm disappointed the firing squad won't get to take their shots at you, I'm confident that the men in prison will have their way with you in more ways than one. You will finally get what you wanted, physical touch. Just probably not how you were expecting it. See, you haven't beat the system. You've simply entered a new one, where the rules are cruel and the consequences will never end. You are entering a place where no one will care who you are and no one will ever respect you. You will be forgotten, discarded, used, and erased. You will always be remembered as a loser, an absolute failure. And when those prison doors slam shut behind you, I hope that sound echoes in your heart for the rest of your meaningless days. I hope it reminds you of what we all already know. You're nothing. May you continue to live your life in misery. You are officially the property of the state of Idaho, where your fellow inmates are anxiously awaiting your arrival. But it's okay, because they're there to help you. Hell will be waiting. Quick message from our youngest daughter. Aubrey wanted to say, you may have received A's in high school and college, but you're going to be getting big D's in prison.
Thank you. Do we have more from the Goncalves family, or are you?
Yes. Next would be Shannon Gray, the Goncalves family attorney. He'll be reading statements from Kaylee Goncalves' grandmothers.
Morning, Your Honor. Shannon Gray, the attorney for the Goncalves family. I actually have 3 statements, one from her aunt and 2 from her grandparents. This is from her aunt, Tammy Butts. You, in the cloak of darkness, made a decision to turn our whole family's world upside down forever. You, in the cloak of darkness, took our Kaylee J. Goncalves away from us all without hesitation. Never have you shown any remorse or regret. We just get creepy, non-expressive stares as you have your team of women defend you. Kaylee was a strong, kind, fun-loving, caring person, and she will greatly be missed by all her family and friends for the rest of our lives. She had goals in life that you took from her and us. We lose on watching her enjoying her life, working hard and building the future she wanted. She was ready to start that after college life. You, in the cloak of darkness, took it all away. You left us without her future wedding, her future children that she would have added to our family. No more talking to her on the phone, going for a coffee, celebrating holidays. It's all gone. You, in the cloak of darkness, gave each and every one of Kaylee's family members their own lifetime sentence. You, in the cloak of darkness, also took our Maddie Mae from all of us. She was so genuine, caring, polite. She was part of our family. You came in, harmed our children that were younger women than you in their own beds. You're nothing, you're a coward. It's not right that you have received life. I pray that you meet your end in the cloak of darkness, burn in hell. I have 2 other statements, Your Honor. This is Linda Lucan's statement. This is Kaylee's grandmother. I really don't know how to address something so inhumane, but I will try. Nothing in the past 2.5 years has made any sense. All I get is you cowardly went into a home at night, filled with what I'm sure you thought was all sleeping girls, and went on a vicious killing spree for no other reason but to appease your demonic urges. You took my granddaughter Kaylee from us, plus 3 other beautiful lives. You took my granddaughter Kaylee, beautiful, sweet-souled, doll-faced Kaylee, who was getting ready to start her amazing life, who had such a bright future, who was loved by so many, who you were so envious of. She had a life you could never have. You are so beyond human. You're definitely a demon from hell. I truly wish your punishment would be the same death you inflicted on our kids. But I think you will meet some new friends in prison who will be there just to help you. Thumbs up. And I have one last statement, Your Honor. This is from Cheryl Goncalves, Kaylee's other grandmother. John 1:5 says, light shines in the darkness, and the darkness overcomes it not. Somewhere in your life, some jealousy, envy, ego, something went dark. It pushed out all light until you became dark and evil. And when you saw my granddaughter and her friends, their light, because they have such a light, you couldn't stand it. Because the darkness in you could not stand the light in them. And so you decided to destroy it. Cowardly, you walked into their rooms in the dark and took their lives, hoping to get rid of your darkness. But you didn't. You failed. Because you know what was once a light shown only to their friends, families, and loved ones is now all over the world. Everyone sees it. Their smile, their beauty, their plans, everything they were and had. And you think you put a close to it, even that, but you didn't. Because they still exist. They are still light. They are still beautiful. You can never take that away. They will always be in the light of all eternity. And you will be in the darkness because you could not overcome it. You failed. I want you to be gone, more than gone. I want you to be cast out. Cast out from my life, from my family, from this earth. I will not allow your hatred to penetrate into my own soul. You did not get that power. You are evil, and in the end, evil is eradicated. You didn't take Kaylee's light, you spread it into the world. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right. If the are you moving to a different family now? All right, why don't we take a 10-minute recess? All right.
All right. We're going to jump across that recess, but I do think it's worthwhile and important to talk about. I'll put it in the poll. What is the purpose of a victim impact statement? Which is what we're dealing with here. These are victim impact statements, not just you have a chance to speak in court now, say whatever you like. It's not a television interview. It's not a book report or something, right? It's a victim impact statement. What's the purpose of it? Is it to get payback? Is it to humiliate the offender? And I quite like this comment. Sorry, it's this one. Sorry, it's not that one. It's this one. The victim impact statement is whatever the victims needed to be for their healing. Now, I certainly don't want to prescribe what it should be. I know for me what I think is appropriate for me. But certainly what is appropriate for me isn't necessarily appropriate for somebody else. If you still angry, as the Goncalves family are, and I mean, I think they're just those kinds of people, then exactly what they said is appropriate to them. It is interesting that other people who, they didn't lose a family member, you can tell that they are applauding as well, and they seem to be enjoying it as well. And there's a bit of a sadism in that, enjoying the humiliation of BRYAN KOHBERGER. And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it. What I am saying is, what is the right way to grieve? And I'm certainly not saying I don't want to prescribe to someone else what the right way is. I simply want to ask the question, what is the right way to grieve? And it's up to you to answer it. For me, and again, I'm not trying to be prescriptive, for me, I really like the victim impact statement of Maddie's grandmother, I liked it because it was succinct, clear-headed, and it was not really about Kohberger at all. It was remembering the details of a life and putting value on this life that was lost and remembering how precious somebody was. It's acknowledging the person that is no longer there to speak for themselves. And although all of these other things are true, Brian did a horrible thing. That's over. What can we still do with real life? What can we do with our lives? And I think grief is hard. I've lost people as well. Should you remember the darkness and focus on the darkness? You can. You could be right to say, well, things were really that bad. But there's an alternative. You can remember in a way and focus on the things you shared with someone that can almost take you into the rest of your life, even though they're no longer there, right? From my perspective as a true crime creator and someone who's sat in court, I've sat in court and heard some of these statements myself. What I think is important to bear in mind if you a victim or from a family member's perspective is to let the world know what that pain feels like. And while you are accusing and blaming and insulting the perpetrator, you're losing that opportunity to say, this is the damage that a crime can cause. In other words, it's a chance to introduce you and your world to the world and to say, this is what we've been going through. And all of that actually allows catharsis to, like the rest of the world who are going through other things, maybe they went through similar tragedies. How are you dealing with your grief? How are you dealing with your struggles? That I think is quite helpful. And so the grandmother's saying she went to grief counseling, she tried this, tried that, she's reading books. All of that I think is very helpful to address that. Maybe that's not for everyone. Maybe someone else needs to climb a mountain and primal scream at the top of it. But I honestly don't know whether standing in court and insulting, maybe there's a certain satisfaction and need to do that, to call someone a sociopath and tell them a lot of the things that we're thinking and saying, right? But the thing about big D's and the truly sort of insulting stuff, which makes me think of the classroom where you humiliate someone and take satisfaction out of that. That's no better than the perpetrator. Is that the lesson that we're learning, is to get payback, to fight evil with evil? I don't think that's the lesson. It isn't for me. In any event, I don't think I'm, I see 2/3 of you say the purpose is not to humiliate the offender. He's already humiliated as it is. Anyway, I want to get back to the sentencing. What is interesting is there's a notepad on Kohberger's desk with looks slightly dog-eared, and that suggests to me that he is going to say something. In summary, I would say all of these different impact statements, there've been a lot so far, I think do capture in a sense the essence of this case, that they're different people and people are different in different ways. And all that does is it reveals to us who we are, all the different sides to ourselves. And I also think it reveals in a sense where Brian comes from, out of some of that brokenness, out of some, in the sense that it's hard to get over grief. It's also hard to get over grief if you're a criminal. If you think about it from a criminal's perspective, they may feel that they've lost their lives while they're still alive, before they've committed the crime. And so their inability to get over something is, I think, why they commit a crime. It's a crime against society, but a crime they feel has been committed against them, more of a symbolic nature. So if you can't get over trauma and grief, and you in a court situation and you want to be angry and hateful and all that kind of thing, it says something about the human propensity to do the same thing, for ordinary people to become criminals, right? And I couldn't help while I was watching that thinking some of the things that are being said to Brian are meant to sting him. Could he stand up right now and say, you know what, the plea deal's off, let's go to court. My purpose was to hurt society, was to hurt the student society, and now I feel justified and I want to continue to do that. I want you to see yourselves. I want you to something like that. And I'm certainly not taking his side. I'm trying to certainly reconcile our humanity to itself. That makes sense. But I do think in the middle of enjoying these moments where burn in hell and all that kind of thing, if you're enjoying that, I think you must ask, is that going to help you heal, saying things like that? Right? And the answer is, I don't know. I mean, it depends on you. Maybe saying burn in hell is going to make you heal better. I don't know, but is it going to make other people heal better? What is for the greater good? And I think it's worth thinking about. I don't agree with that. I don't know how closely you're watching, but you can actually see Brian is reacting. He's not breaking down in tears, but he certainly is reacting. Okay, let's continue. If you are listening to these statements and you are crying or feeling something, that's important, because what's also happening through this, as I say, is catharsis. We are experiencing some of our own traumas and thinking about how we need to deal with them through other people talking about theirs. And that's why I say, shouldn't the focus be on, I've lost this person that meant so much to me. How am I dealing with heartbreak? How should we deal with heartbreak? It's really the court's purview to deal with the murderer, but it's our purview how to deal with death and destruction in a way where we can come out of it the other side and, not fully healed, but able to live on the rest of our lives. I think another way of thinking of it, and it might be oversimplistic, is to say, if you're in a relationship with someone, a marriage, romantic relationship, and you break up and you go your separate ways, should you go your separate ways and you're broken for the rest of your life and you can't be in a relationship again and you devastated by the trauma of this relationship that didn't work out, is that the best situation for that? This is not someone who died. This is just the end of a relationship. Maybe you don't see them again ever in your life and it is like they died. But the real question is, how can one deal with a very heartbreaking situation in a way that you graduate out of it? And in other words, how do you heal from your own trauma? I don't know if you heal from it by spending the rest of your life reading romance novels or watching cases where somebody murders someone who wanted to break up with them. I don't know if that's the way you heal, but I think it's a question we do need to ask. What is the right way to heal? Anyway, I'd be interested to hear what you guys say in the comments. Let's go back to the sentencing.
Just want to say thank you to everyone who's been involved in this, and just for all the hard work and dedication you guys have put into this. I also want to thank everyone for the support, and just my family and friends who've been around through this time. I went back and forth on whether to speak today, because the truth is, you don't deserve power over my feelings, my words, or me.
Thank you. In the end, I realized this moment isn't about you. It's about justice for Zana. Ethan, Kaylee, and Maddie. It's about honoring the beautiful people they were and still are in God's eyes. On November 13th, 2022, a piece of my heart was ripped away. There's no way to ever fully describe the weight of losing my sister, my best friend. No sentence or punishment will ever come close to the justice Zana, Ethan, Kaylee, and Maddie deserve. Zana was everyone's best friend. She was kind, she was funny. She was a gift to each person she was able to make an impact on. Zana was someone I turned to when I needed direction or advice. Although I am her older sister, I often found myself looking up to her. She had a radiant energy that everyone loved, and she always knew the right way to approach a problem. She knew how precious and special life was, and she truly did live every day to the fullest. Yet her story was cut short by an act of evil. I believe in a God whose justice is not bound by this courtroom. I find peace knowing that judgment ultimately belongs to Him. For your sake, I hope one day you feel the full weight of what you did. I hope you take accountability. I hope you truly experience the guilt and you surrender yourself to Jesus Christ. Because no punishment on this earth can ever compare to the isolation and pain of eternal separation from God. Zana deserved more. They all did. But I come here to say this. I am strong. I am brave. I'm a fighter, just like Zana. And you don't get to control how I move forward or what I believe. I walk with the comfort of knowing I will see my sister again. Zana didn't get the future she deserved. She won't be the maid of honor at my wedding, the cool aunt to my future children. I'll never hear her laugh or see her light up a room ever again. But I will carry her with me for the rest of my life. I will live in her honor, fight to be the best kind of woman and someone she's proud of, to make sure the world never forgets who she was. Zana's story doesn't end with what was taken from her. It lives through the love she gave, the people she touched, and the legacy our family will protect. Her light still shines, and her voice will echo louder than this pain. You didn't take that from us, and you never will.
Thank you.
I just want to say before I start, I'm Zana's dad, Jeff Kernodle. It's been a hard road down, because she's gone. And I want to thank everybody, other their families that's speaking so far, spoke about things. I agree with everything they have to say. It all comes back to a lot of the same things that I've had to deal with and we as a family have had to deal with. And that brings me, basis of what I'm talking about a little bit is on my way up here, flying up here in the plane and about halfway through the flight, this little girl is calling out for her dad. Hey, dad. And then in my mind, I was kind of half asleep. It's dark on the plane. I heard Zana calling out for me like she did, back when she was little, 5 years old. And those times were hard. It was chaotic, but we always had something to work toward that was in a positive direction compared to right now, which is necessarily not as positive as that for sure. And I know I miss Zana a lot. My life's been changed, and Zana had a great impact on me. And the impact was when she was gone, I realized how important she was and what she really did for me, influenced me, was way beyond what I ever thought. She'd call me up on the weekends, check on me, see who's with me. She's like accountability to your youngest daughter. And that really made a big difference. It made me really think about things and what it's all about, you know. That's the things that I miss the most is those calls on the weekends, the calls at 11 at night. What's going on? You want to meet my friend? You know, whoever she's with, a couple of her friends, I can meet them, talk to them. And she always did that. And it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. I really miss that. And she made a big impact on me, on other people, her family. But the impact that she made is so extensive on what happened here. And it goes so far. People from everywhere in the world, you know, are following things, and Zana has made a difference in their lives. So, you know, countless people told me that they might not even know her. They never knew anything about her. It's what they see, and they just love her and say how they wish she could have been their friend. You know, could have been their friend, could hung out, and it's like, this is a blessing, you know. This is the whole kid was, and definitely was a big blessing in my life, and so is Jasmine, and basically, you know, we worked hard to do the things we did, that, you know, through the times they were growing up, and through those times, I realized that I wanted both of them to graduate college, and that'd be the ultimate thing for them to do to prepare for the world. Then it came back to me. Zana didn't get to finish college. He had it all figured out, and this all just came back to me when I was there, and that little girl was on the plane doing that. It's like where I was going, what I was going here for. And then I just realized and thought to myself about the wonderful life that she had and we had together. And we, you know, I still get to have with Jasmine, but that's the part that really counted. It's the part that really counted, is those memories. And those are what I have left, the memories with her and the ones I can make with her, and the life that I can go on with now, which is what she wants. And I say that in present tense because that's what she wants, because I've been told that, you know, I've been countless ways that she's out there and has a way to communicate, which I'm very grateful for. That goes to say that the impact of what happened to them, all the 4 kids, goes so much further than just not me, the parents, the families, the community. It goes so far, because a lot of kids, you know, in the colleges, just for an example, they locked their doors now. The door wasn't locked in the back. You know, Penn State or wherever it was, all the colleges I know that I've heard, they all lock their doors now. So maybe the impact that it's going to make is going to help out and maybe protect some people. Having this outreach and having the influence of what these kids, what happened to these kids did, you know. All I know is I was 7 miles away when it happened, and she wasn't feeling that good. It was 11:30. And I almost went over to Susanna's to say, and I would have been sitting right there in that couch, and you had to deal with me. So they would have had a chance. And I regret that. And I regret not going. But the reason why I didn't is because Zana said, don't be drinking and driving. Got the rental car, don't be drinking and driving, you know, the week before that. So she was, she would have been mad at me to do that. But I really wish I would have drunk and drove, you know, because they would have had a chance, all 4 of them. At this point, I just have to go on. We're going to go on with everything and make things better in my life, because that's what it's all about. If I have closure in things, And the part that we miss is Zana, her influence, her smile, the things that she did. And we have the memories left, the great memories. And she just wants us to make more memories and not be sad or upset or shocked or taken for that, you know. And that's what we're going to do. We just have to. That's all I got.
Thank you for your words and your courage, and bless your family.
Next, Kim Kernodle would like to address the court.
Just a quick note, when he quipped that he hoped that, or he wished that he had driven drunk to be with Zana, that could have led to another quadruple. You could have had a whole bunch of people dying as a result of that. So notice the court weren't particularly amused by that. It is interesting how different every single victim impact statement is, right? And I think through the range of them, one does just get a sense of the impact of this crime.
Thank you, Your Honor. My name is Kim Kernodle. I am Zana's aunt. I was very blessed to have her in my life, in our family. And I thought I had everything in my head, what I wanted to say, but it kind of went out. And I'm always looking for the positive thing, because evil, hate, can destroy people. And that's what it started doing with our family. It created anger with our family members. And then I had to look, because Zana was everything that the media, her friends said. She was that fun, loving, high-spirited, beautiful person. And I no longer get to get my nails done with her, have lunch with her. Sorry. But how I look at it now is this tragedy, this horrible tragedy on all of the 4 children, has brought us closer. You united us with your actions. We're united now, and we're stronger than ever. We have family and friends now that we never knew we had. And, you know, this is probably going to bother everybody, but Brian, I'm here today to tell you I have forgiven you, because I no longer could live with that hate in my heart. And for me to become a better person, I have forgiven you. And anytime you want to talk and tell me what happened, get my number. I'm here, no judgment, because I do have answers or questions that I want you to answer. And I'm here. I'll be that one that'll listen to you. Okay? Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you very much.
My name is Stratton Kernodle, and I'm Xana's uncle, Jeff's brother. Sitting here today listening to the stories and feelings and feeling the pain from everybody is a pretty powerful thing. It's each time a statement was read, it sort of would tug into my center core as I felt everybody's anguish. And Zana meant a lot to us, and we loved her very much. But I started thinking about, instead of rehashing everything that everybody else has talked about. I wanted to direct it another direction toward Bryan and what he's done to his family, his parents, his siblings, his friends, his universe. He has contaminated, tainted their family name, and pretty much made a horrible, miserable thing to be ever related to him. And I know that that's what he has to live with, and that has to be his pain. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Next, Your Honor, I believe Randy Davis, stepfather to Zana Kernodle, would like to address the court.
Hi, my name's Randy, stepdad of Zana. I just feel the same way we all do. All of us are united because of something that happened. And I'm grateful to know and have met some new family because of this awful event. But this is probably the last time we're all going to be in the same room together. Let's be real. So I can say, I love you all, and I feel your pain. And just God bless us all, just get through it. I had stuff wrote up. It was probably best I didn't read it out. Probably get kicked out of here. So, I'll share one thing to you guys, not to you, with Zana. So I was working in North Dakota and came home, and Jazzy and Zana had taken our son Elijah and put him in a dress, makeup, and it was awful. I was like, I don't know. She was funny. I told her she'd be in the movies and be somebody great one day like that. And now she is just above us as an angel with all the other beautiful kids. So let's hold that to our hearts, because this evil thing is not going to take nothing from us. You, man, I don't know what my limits are here, but I'm really struggling, dude. I am struggling. So I want to just be out in the woods with you, just so I can teach you about loss and pain. I love God. I wouldn't take your life. That's up to him. But I guarantee you are weak. God, I would just give a moment, man. 5 minutes out in the woods. Oh, man. You're going to go to hell. I know people believe in other stuff. You're evil. There's no place for you in heaven. You took our children. You are going to suffer, man. I'm shaking because I want to reach out to you, but I hope you feel my energy, okay? Go to hell.
Next is Kara Northington, Xana's mother.
I'm Kara Northington. I am Zana Kernodle's mother. This letter is to you, really, but it's for my daughter, who was murdered by you. Today I stand before you, the man who is responsible for murdering my beautiful daughter, Zana Kernodle. My daughter was beautiful both inside and out. She possessed love for those around her and had a light so bright it will live on forever in our hearts. She brought joy and laughter to her friends, her family, and anyone in her presence. Our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, now has her in his loving arms in heaven, where she can never be harmed ever again for eternity. Because of her, I came to know my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Because of her, many will come to Christ. It is Christ who lives in me that has given me the strength to forgive you. It was of no power of my own. In return, the Lord has filled me with joy, hope, and peace that surpasses all understanding. Jesus has allowed me to forgive you for murdering my daughter without you even being sorry or asking for this. This is only possible because he who lives in me is greater than any evil in this world. For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. I do not fear you or even let you rent space in my head anymore. This forgiveness has released me from any and all evil you have inflicted on me and my family. It has allowed me to let our Lord deal with you. You have accepted a deal that will prevent you from receiving the death penalty. Nothing man can do to you can ever compare to the wrath of God. Inevitably, you will stand before our Lord and will have to answer to him over the sins you have committed in murdering our children. I pray you come to the end of yourself before that day. Whether you like it or not, heaven is for real and so is hell. The innocent life of Zana that you stole from myself and my family, and the destruction of this, and the destruction it has caused. I am washing my hands of you and turning you over to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, whom vengeance belongs to. In closing, I want to read a passage from the Bible, Ephesians 6, King James Version. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and then in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore, take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, that ye may be able to stand in the evil day. I'm not going to share memories of Zana or any more of the goodness of her with you, because I do not want that to be in your head. I don't want it to be in your head. You don't deserve that. You don't deserve our good memories that we have. I do pray for you. I pray that you come to the end of yourself. I pray that before this life is over, that you ask our Lord and Savior in your heart and to forgive you. I do pray for that. But after today, I wash my hands of you, and you are no longer a thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, and that is yet another way that some people deal with this sort of thing. God, give it to God, right? If you think about some of the statements that have been made by quite a few people, bird in hell, I'm not going to deal with you because God is going to deal with you. If you think of that in a literal sense, why have a trial? Why even have a trial if you're going to have justice in the afterlife, right? If you think about it, why do we need to have a courtroom? Why do we need to have accountability on earth if it's going to be in the afterlife?
I don't believe the state has any other victim impact statements.
Okay. All right, stay and argue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just as a housekeeping matter to start, there will be the issue of restitution. That is, the documentation is being gathered, and we ask the court would defer that for 30 days so we can present it in an orderly fashion and make sure it's comprehensive for everyone.
Any objection to leaving restitution open 60 days? All right.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think it's necessary and appropriate to share for everyone here, including the court, the background that brings us in front of Your Honor today for these proceedings. As the record reflects, and as everybody in this courtroom knows, the defendant has pleaded guilty to all 5 counts charged in the indictment. Under oath before Your Honor, he has admitted that the charges against him are true. He has reassured the court that he has not been coerced or threatened to make those admissions. And Your Honor did an extraordinary job in taking the pleas back on July 2nd. We appreciate the court's discipline and insight. The defendant has also waived appeal on the multitude of rulings from this court and Your Honor's predecessor in Latah County on dozens, literally dozens of motions seeking to dismiss the case, seeking to control or limit evidence, seeking to offer evidence that would not be appropriate. And we appreciate the court's consistent rulings based on the law, based on the facts. As Your Honor will recall, on June 18th, it's just really not that long ago, we appeared before this court for arguments on what became the defendant's final motions to this court. Motion where they wanted to offer evidence suggesting that other people were responsible for the defendant's actions, and the motion seeking essentially an indefinite continuance of the trial. It was readily apparent to all of us in the courtroom from Your Honor's comments that those motions were not going to be granted. So we returned to Moscow and continued with what we had been working on for months in preparation for trial. We had no qualms about going to trial if trial was what was necessary and appropriate. The following week after we were in court, we were approached by the defense with an inquiry about a possible plea. And I can tell the court this is the first suggestion ever that there was any consideration, because indeed the defense had maintained from the beginning that Mr. Kohberger, the defendant, was factually innocent. It's clear that the reality of the evidence and the case that had been investigated and prepared and that we were ready to present in court became a reality. Our reaction, among other things, was to reach out to all the families. And in fact, later that week, on Thursday and Friday of that last week of June, we met with representatives by teams, virtual meetings with representatives of all the families. And we talked about the status of the case and the upcoming trial and things that related to the trial. And we also let them know that there had been an inquiry about whether there might be an offer for a plea. And we asked the family members for their thoughts and feelings. And they were candid. And they have been candid since, and we respect that. And we understand, recognize, and acknowledge that there was a difference of opinion among representatives of the different families. We understand that. One of the challenges of this case, one of the unique things about this case is we have multiple victims, each unique unto themselves, their families and friends unique unto themselves, and all of them entitled to their opinions, all of them entitled to their thoughts. Over the following weekend, our prosecution team, very skilled attorneys who were personally as well as professionally deeply invested in this case, met. And we talked, and the decision was reached. Well, to start with, were there to be any sort of plea offer or discussion, there's only one possibility. And that would be for the defendant to plead guilty straight up to all charges. There would be no bargaining about counts. There would be no bargaining about reduced sentences. And so we made the proposal to the defense that if the defendant was willing to plead guilty up front to all 5 counts as charged and waive appeal of the court's myriad decisions during the past 2.5+ years on all these motions that would have consumed years, if not decades, of time in the future. By the end of the weekend, we were notified the defendant was prepared to plead guilty as charged and factually acknowledge his responsibility in court for these horrible crimes. Obviously, those discussions and negotiations were confidential. And as Your Honor noted, I believe that was necessarily so, because if the defendant had decided not to plead guilty, it would have been devastating to our jury pool for there to be public information that there had been consideration by either party to a plea resolution. And protecting the prospective integrity of a trial after so many years was paramount. So, the end of the weekend came. We notified the victims' families of what had occurred. I recognize and acknowledge personally, and I respect the fact that of these fine, suffering people here, not everybody agreed with the decision we make. I accept that. It's my responsibility in the end. I recognize that that's the duty of the office that I hold. So now, it is time for the judicial system to impose final judgment and close the door on this chapter of these tragedies. As the court is aware, by the agreement of the parties, it is the state's prayer. Perhaps have the Elmo police turned on. Thank you. That on count 1, the felony burglary, that the court sentenced the defendant to the maximum period of 10 years fixed in the custody of the Idaho Department of Correction. Then on count 2, that the court sentenced the defendant to fixed life for the murder of Maddie Mogen.
On count 3, that the court sentence the defendant to fixed life for the murder of Kaylee Goncalves. On count 4, that the court sentence the defendant to fixed life for the murder of Zana. On count 5, that the court sentenced the defendant to fixed life for the murder of Ethan Chapin. And the state further prays that these sentences be ordered to run consecutively, back to back, not at the same time,
Not concurrently.
to recognize and respect the unique individuality of each of these beautiful young people whose lives were taken brutally and for no reason. And hopefully now, as we have heard earlier this morning, it is time to afford the families and the friends and the community in the state of Idaho and the nation and the world to move forward. We can't undo, and we can never undo, the horror of what occurred on the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022 at 1122 King Street in Moscow, Idaho. For a long time, the presiding district judge in Latah County was John Stegner, who eventually became a member and a justice of the Idaho Supreme Court. And Justice Stegner often observed that even God cannot change the past. But everyone in this room has the ability to take themselves forward. And we want the judicial system to afford them the opportunity today to do that. From today forward, our memories should be focused on these innocent victims whose lives were taken, on their families, on their friends, on the community. The court has heard discussion, talk today, reminiscences today about a special family that our victims shared, not just their natural, legal, and biological families, not just their university family within their sororities, for example. But this family. This is the picture taken on November 12th, 2022, of the special family of 1122 King Road. And you can see all 6 of these dynamic, vibrant, loving, special, innocent faces taken together just across the street from their residence, and barely 12 hours before 4 of them would be brutally murdered in their sleep. They've been described consistently as being bright, caring, vivacious, with futures we can only imagine now.
And that's why Brian killed them, is because everything they had, he didn't have. He didn't have that brightness. He didn't have that joy, right? And I've always wondered, did Brian see that post on Instagram in the midst of his misery?
But they were, and they remain, a special family that I think we should all recognize and appreciate. So it's time to move forward. There have been a number of statements directed specifically at the defendant today. I have one last thought. After Your Honor imposes judgment and sentences the defendant to spend the rest of his life in prison, in other words, sentence the defendant to die in prison. He's going to stand up in the belly chains and the leg irons that he's wearing today. And he's going to be escorted into the custody of the Idaho Department of Correction. And the door will close behind him forever. That is the closure that we seek, that all of these people, these loving friends and family deserve, so that we can move forward. Thank you, Your Honor.
I must say it's heartening to, I'm almost quite tearful myself, but it's heartening to see a prosecutor so emotional. It's heartening to see a prosecutor care about his case so much. We often see lawyers lawyering and like it's a game, and it's really is touching to see to what extent he's emotionally touched by this, but also, you know, you would expect it to do that. And you know, it's been a long legal battle, in a crazy sense. Like, I just can't believe the number of motions that's been going on. He was saying that, you know, if they honored this, and you know, if let's say the court had said, let us accommodate this idea that there could be another perpetrator. The prosecutor said this could have gone on for decades, right? And so this is really a wonderful outcome. But like I say, it's really good to see the humanity that's been on display in this courtroom as not a reflection, but the opposite of a reflection, as a not mirror to the lack of humanity that this crime is, you know, that is the essence of this crime. It's really good to see real people in their different ways just showing their humanity in the face of this inhumanity, right?
Thank you. All right, does the defense have evidence to present today? All right. Does defense wish to make argument today? All right, Mr. Kohlberger, you have an opportunity to make a statement if you wish to. I take it you are declining.
I respectfully decline.
Well, please. All right, let me start this morning by acknowledging and thanking those that have come here today in support of their loved ones. And I appreciate your courage and your strength. And I hope that you are able to move on as best as possible. Thank counsel for the professionalism that they've exhibited throughout this case. It's been my great honor to preside in this case and to help bring, to the extent possible, some resolution, and hopefully justice to this case. During the quiet morning hours of November 13, 2022, a faceless coward breached the tranquility of 6 beautiful young people and senselessly slaughtered them, 4 of them. Who committed this unspeakable evil was unknown for several weeks, but due to the killer's incompetence and outstanding police work by numerous local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies, the person that slithered through that sliding glass door at 1122 King Road now stands before the world and this court unmasked. This unfathomable and senseless act of evil has caused immeasurable pain and loss. No parent should ever have to bury their child. This is the greatest tragedy that can be inflicted upon a person. Parents who took their children to college in a truck filled with moving boxes had to bring them home in hearses lined with coffins. The loss this killer inflicted was not just the death of these people's children, siblings, grandchildren, as we've heard today. It has ripped a hole in their soul, destroying a special part of their very essence. Any person who is a parent defines themselves foremost as such. It is their existence and purpose of being. And it has been stolen from these parents. None of us have experienced the loss these victims have in the unspeakable way that they have. And therefore, none of us can, nor should we, question the way in which they have handled their loss. Whether that be in private mourning, removed as far as possible from this media circus, or in front of a camera demanding retribution with the loudest megaphone. I've listened intently to the stories and pain that have been shared today, with great awe at the courage and resilience of the surviving family members of those wonderful children. I've listened also to the surviving roommates, both in person and through their friends. And I can't think of how, frankly, courageous they have been despite the hell that they have faced by uncaring people who have come up with all kinds of crazy theories about 2 kids simply being kids. The parents, siblings, and other family members who have spoken today are designated as victims in our legal system. But going forward, I hope that they can shed that label, as it gives too much power to the evil that condemned them to that role. They are and should be known as survivors, fighters, and foremost as witnesses to the tremendous lives of value and unbounded promise of these 4 young people. But those speaking today and those who did not speak, but who carry the same burden, this same loss, now carry forward the memories of these now perpetually young people, these forever children. These survivors carry the responsibility of ensuring that the voices of these children, Maddie, Kaylee, Zana, and Ethan, are never forgotten, and the positive impacts that they have had on so many lives are never minimized, and that the love they shared, the light that they shined onto others is forever celebrated. As we sit here today, this case is ending, and we are now certain who committed these unspeakable acts of evil, but we don't know, and what we may never know is why. I share the desire expressed by others to understand the why, but upon reflection, it seems to me, and this is just my own opinion, that by continuing to focus on why, we continue to give Mr. Kohberger relevance. We give him agency and we give him power. The need to know what is inherently not understandable makes us dependent upon the defendant to provide us with a reason, and that gives him the spotlight, the attention, and the power he appears to crave.
Right, I have to say I really disagree with that. This idea that the why is inherently unknowable. And I'm quite shocked to hear that coming from a judge. I would really imagine that a judge would not say that. And I've seen that from a lot of people in true crime, which is, it's a silly question to ask, etc., etc. I also disagree that Brian's story is completely irrelevant, right? I understand what's going on here. It's wanting to compartmentalize Brian and to close the door and never see him again. I understand that. And maybe that's how certain people deal with it. But there are going to be more Brians in the future. This is not the last murder that's ever going to happen. So if you want to prevent this from happening in future, it behoves you to try and understand where this came from and how it happened. And as much as you might say Brian's not relevant to all of this, the why is supremely relevant. And unfortunately, in order to figure out the why, you are going to have to spend some time trying to find out who this person is. And to the extent that you say, we have a license not to do that, we have a reason to completely ignore that. And I've seen this over and over and over again at the court, at the epilogue of the whole court process, where you get the result, you get the conviction, and then people go, why? And then they basically say, well, we don't know why, we'll never know why, we'll never understand. And the fact that we don't understand proves what great human beings we are, and that we are above all of this, right? The fact is, BRYAN KOHBERGER is a product of our society, of our time, right? And until you can understand how those mechanisms work, those products are going to re-emerge in our society. And so it is really reckless and incorrect to treat it in this way. The why is, in a way, the most important question that needs to be answered at the end of the day, especially if you want to prevent history from repeating itself, which I can promise you it will. And to the extent that you can understand it, you can at least ameliorate the situation, you can improve the situation. Does that make sense?
Yet even if I could force him to speak, which legally I cannot, how could anyone ever be assured that what he speaks is the truth? Do we really believe, after all of this, he's capable of speaking the truth or of giving up something of himself to help the very people whose lives he destroyed? Rather, I suspect the so-called self-serving and aggrandizing untruthful bits, leaving people wanting more information, more insight, and thus enhancing even further the power he seeks to hold. Even if we could get truthful insight into his why, I suspect it would not in any way quench one's thirst for actually understanding why in the first instance. Because there is no reason for these crimes that could approach anything resembling rationality. No conceivable reason could make any sense. And in the end, the more we struggle to seek explanation for the unexplainable, the more we try to extract a reason, the more power and control we give to him. In my view, the time has now come to end Mr. Kohberger's 15 minutes of fame. It's time that he be consigned to the ignominy and isolation of perpetual incarceration. I know there has been concern about him collaborating on books or movies or other media projects, and I truly hope that someone does not stoop to affording him this spotlight that he desires in the name of clicks, royalties, or profits. While criminal behavioralists should study him away from the spotlight in an attempt to prevent other would-be killers from acting on their worst impulses, there should be no need for that to spill over into the public eye. The great Idaho jurist Edward Lodge was known for trying to find something positive about every person he ever sentenced. And with over a half a century as a trial judge, that was a lot of people. This was often challenging, and I recall in one case he said that the best he could come up with was the defendant had good penmanship. Truth be told, I'm unable to come up with anything redeeming about Mr. Kohberger because his grotesque acts of evil have buried and hidden anything that might have been good or intrinsically human about him. His actions.
Okay, well, I hope this is not going to make me seem like an apologist, because I certainly am not. Like, if there's anyone who, what's the word? I mean, I've gone to that house and I've sat in a hotel room in Moscow the whole day, just thinking about this case and being mired in it. But what I don't appreciate is a case like this exposing our inhumanity, our hatred, our intolerance, our sadism. And so on that question, can you think of anything positive to say about him? I actually can. And that is, when people were insulting him in this courtroom, he didn't do what a lot of other criminals could have done. He didn't pull out his tongue. He didn't respond. He could have stood up and made a hateful statement at the end of this. And although I think many wanted to hear what his statement was, the fact that he's not saying anything, although I think it's doing it for legal reasons, it's also not in a way stooping to the level of eye for an eye, because he could also have, I guess, vented in his own way. Now, if you say a sentencing hearing is for venting, is it not also for the perpetrator to vent as well? And I'm certainly not trying to be as an apologist. What I'm trying to do is reconcile reality to itself in a way that's not anal and not unemotional and not inhuman, but certainly the most human thing you can do, which is try and understand ourselves in the situation. I just want to refer to this person who says, I disagree. We don't need to know why. I've got to ask you, what are you doing on this channel? Because this channel has always been about why. All my books are about why, right? So I'm not sure if you know why you're here, but that is what we try and deal with on this channel in quite a serious and sincere way, and in a way that puts off a lot of other people. There are other people who want to just be emotional and just take the sides of victims. And on this channel, we actually try to see both sides of the equation. And when you're trying to understand the perpetrator, which so people have got so little time for, and I mean, he even seems to say he doesn't understand it. I feel like I do. I feel like I do understand where all of this came from. I've dealt with the motive in this case. When this whole case started off, we had virtually every single YouTuber and media person and expert adamant that BRYAN KOHBERGER was a serial killer. And do you remember that? Like, everyone unanimously was saying he's a serial killer. And there was one person, I don't know, I can't think of anyone besides myself, who said that he wasn't. How did I know that? Was it just a good guess? And also, by the same token, how and why did everyone else think he was a serial killer? Because we've got such a superficial, shallow understanding of our fellow man. And we don't even have time, when we here dealing with it, to go, well, maybe we should think about why. We don't even have time for that. Our capacity to deal with that is terribly shit poor. And to the extent that you can't know your enemies and can't know evil in our community, I'm sorry to say you can also not know good. You can also probably not know yourself. And so certainly at this level in a courtroom where you're going to say why is irrelevant and not knowing who someone is irrelevant, I think you've got a lot to learn about how courts need to function. I'm appalled, to be honest. I'm really appalled. And I'm someone who's actually studied the law. And I'm very aware that you don't need to prove motive in a courtroom. It's not required. You need to prove intent. But really, for all intents and purposes, we need to know what motives are, right? It's important that we know so that we can, to some extent, investigate our fucking selves, right? And so just to wash our hands from this whole thing is ridiculous. As far as I'm concerned, it's ridiculous. And I don't care if I'm an outlier in all this and I'm the only person saying this and it's not popular. I know that it's right and I know that it's important and I know that it's not happening. And I know that we're becoming worse and worse at it. We're becoming very good at rolling our eyes and making quips and the whole shallow commentary of it. We're very, very poor at doing the most important stuff. It is what it is, right?
Have made him the worst of the worst. Even in pleading guilty, he is giving nothing hinting of remorse or redemption, nothing suggesting even a recognition or understanding, let alone regret for the pain that he has caused. And therefore, I will not attempt to speak about him further, other than to simply sentence him so that he is forever removed from civilized society. And accordingly, based upon his conduct and based upon the record before this court, recognizing the standards that govern this court's sentencing decisions as set forth in State v. Toohill, I hereby sentence Mr. Kohberger as follows. On count 1, burglary, 10 years fixed, 0 years indeterminate. I also impose a fine of $50,000. Count 2, first-degree murder of Madison Mogan. I sentence the defendant to a fixed term of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a fine of $50,000, and a civil penalty of $5,000 payable to the family of the victim. On count 3, for first-degree murder of Kaylee Goncalves, I sentence the defendant to a fixed term of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a fine of $50,000, and a civil penalty of $5,000 payable to the victim of the family, or to the family of the victim, pardon me. On count 4, for the first-degree murder of Zana, I sentence the defendant to a fixed term of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a fine of $50,000, and a civil penalty of $5,000 payable to the family of the victim. On count 5, for the first-degree murder of Ethan Chapin, I sentence the defendant to a fixed term of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a fine of $50,000, and a civil penalty of $5,000 payable to the family of the victim. The sentences on counts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 shall run consecutively to one another. Restitution will be left open for 60 days. Defendant will be required to submit a DNA sample and a right thumbprint impression to the Department of Corrections and comply with the DNA Database Act. I remand the defendant to the custody of the Idaho State Board of Corrections for to be imprisoned in an appropriate facility in execution of the sentence where he will remain until he dies. Though you have waived your right to appeal, you do have a right to file a notice of appeal, and any such appeal must be filed within 42 days of the date of the written judgment, which will be entered shortly hereafter. Though the appeal, you should be aware, may be deemed a violation of the plea agreement, and so I certainly suggest you discuss that with counsel if that is your desire. I ask the media and public present to allow the families to be escorted out first before they leave. Again, thank you to everyone for your stories today. I am strengthened by them, and I am encouraged by your humanity and strength. And God bless you. We're adjourned.
All right. So I'm going to adjourn in the next 5 minutes. So I just want to look at some of your comments. Someone said his intent was revenge and his motive was he's an incel. I don't think that that is correct. I have spoken at length on his motive. I see there's a smaller motive and a bigger motive. I do think if you think of it in a very basic way, BRYAN KOHBERGER was a young man in a college setting. They're boys and girls. There's a the whole the kids who were murdered were big partiers, and they were having a lot of fun, and there was the basic thing that is taking place is kind of sexual adventures, being with someone that you love, and having this wonderful experience. And that's exactly what he wasn't having. That's exactly what he wasn't experiencing. And it's when you go into the why and the motive that it actually awakens, in a way, your own experiences in certain respects. And in this area, it's tremendously helpful to, if it's authentic, to in an authentic way deal with the true motivations of criminals, because they do, at the end of the day, come out of ordinary psychology, starts off as ordinary psychology, and it later becomes criminal. And if you can understand that, then you can start to identify the patterns in your own life that are dysfunctional. And there's a tremendous benefit to society if you do that. Unfortunately, everyone makes a big joke out of this, or it's entertainment, or it's, I don't know, someone has got whatever their agenda is. And as a result of that, you don't access this incredible value. It's an incredibly dark cloud. But if there's one silver lining to it, it is finding the true truth of it. Not my truth or your truth, but the truth of the reality of the situation. And one of the realities of this case is why. It's there, right? The why is there. Whether you know it or not, and whether BRYAN acknowledges it or not, or verbalizes it or not, it's there. And there's some gold, in a sense, in accessing that truth, because to that extent you can access your own, and that is something that can really benefit society. And so society impoverishes itself to not go down that track, or to go down it in a cynical, opportunistic, shallow way that we see most of true crime in the media undertaking in cases like this. And all of us are the poorer for it, right? The terror of this case can be something that actually enriches society if you can learn something from it. And unfortunately, in a situation like this, where BRYAN says nothing and the judge says it's irrelevant, we don't need to know why, well done, you've just managed to impoverish society all over again. You might say, how on earth can something like a crime improve society? Well, in the most basic way, that you don't allow that thing to happen again, that you learn from your mistakes, that society can sort of gird its loins. And one of the things that I heard that might sound stupid to hear, but maybe a very basic thing that you can learn from this case, students, is lock your doors, right? Another thing, and this is a conversation I would have loved to have had this case certainly been dealt with in a different way, is social media. What should students, young people, put on social media? Because I have no doubt that Maddie's social media triggered BRYAN's interest, but also his frustration. And so that's something also to think about, is privacy, being more guarded and private, especially for young people, in terms of their And anyway, all of this is what comes out when you deal with the reality of someone's motives and what they're seeing and what they're doing and what they're thinking. Then you realize, wow, this is the security we need to enhance and put in place that wasn't there before. When you deal with it in a, I'm just being entertained by this, you lose all of that. You lose all of those opportunities to improve society. And you heard a lot of the victims saying, how can we, go on from here? How can we go from this place and sort of make it a better world? Unfortunately, part of that is taking stock of what's wrong with the world. I'm not saying, and I'm certainly someone who understands, because it's a true crime channel, we deal with death and blood and murder all the time. And I'm certainly not here to say we need to do that. We need to just stay into the dark all day, every day, and figure it out. I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying, if you are there in court and this is what you're there to deal with, why are you not dealing with it? So, that is my take. I'm not gonna, my voice is a little, I'm a little struggling a little bit with a little bit of a cold, and it is very cold here where I am, so I'm not gonna be up for much longer. Jeremy, thanks very much for that. Thoughtful and provocative. Appreciate that. A character, if that's the word, that I'm also quite sad that we didn't really see acknowledged, certainly in the courtroom, is Murphy, Kaylee's dog. Murphy actually barked when this incident was happening. Murphy may have played quite a big role in alerting the survivors. We know that Murphy was barking when all of this was happening. And if anything, Murphy may have, to some extent, added to the disincentive for the perpetrator to continue murdering. Because as soon as he started, there was Kaylee fighting back, but there was also, screaming and so on. But Murphy basically participated in alerting that entire household to what was going on. And Murphy, in a way, I think, is also part of the story of Murphy has had to go on to live the rest of his life as well. And you might think it's silly, but when you think of it in terms of a dog, a dog's emotional capacities are far different to a person's. And yet, I'm sure that dog has found joy in the rest of his life, and we need to do the same. We also need to find our own doggy spirit, if that's the thing, after terrible loss. And there is a way to do that. And that is a conversation, I think, worth having. Let's go through a couple of your comments. Christopher, thanks very much for that. By the way, Christopher is, I don't want to get this wrong, Christopher, but Christopher does have a legal education. So if you've got any questions, he's the guy to ask. I also want to say the fact that I'm interested in why isn't prescriptive. It doesn't mean we must all be interested in it. But I also think as a judge, I personally believe it's wrong to make a comment that it's irrelevant or that it's not necessary to know, or that we shouldn't even make any attempt to know it because it's unfathomable. I personally think that is a reckless, untrue statement, and it doesn't belong in a courtroom. And I say that understanding that the motive isn't necessary to prove a crime. I understand that. But I do also understand that it is important that we understand it, and especially the real why, because so often you find out people say what the why is, and that's not what it is. And that's one of the reasons I feel, because I've had to validate, there have been many times that I've felt like I don't want to continue doing this. And one of the reasons that I validate participating in this process in this community is that I feel there's virtually no one, and I hope I don't sound arrogant when I say it. I believe it. Maybe I'm even wrong, but I honestly feel there's virtually no one that is able to, first of all, that goes to the trouble in a serious and systematic way, but also someone that persists in a way that shows integrity and sincerity in literally just, let's find out what really happened here, regardless of whether it's popular or whatever. I honestly don't know of anyone else who does that. If there is someone else who does that, I don't know whether they get it right. I honestly feel like they, a lot of the, when I see other people talking about motive, I can't believe my ears. I heard somebody saying that Brian's motive is that he's a psychopath. Yeah, I'm not going to go through why that is just a ridiculous statement to make again, but it is. But it just shows how incredibly poor our ability is to deal with human motivation when we are there to deal with it. And that, I think, is a sad indictment of our society, right? I think it shows what a shallow society we've become. And I don't know what the antidote to that is. I mean, the antidote is trying to figure out why. But the failure to want to, and the failure to be able to, maybe all the time scrolling on social media and just what we do every single day is making us a very, in our own way, a psychopathic society. We should care about the why in this case. And let me put it in, without mincing words, let me put it in a very simple way. If Maddie could have stood up in that court, if Maddie could have walked through the doors, maybe in some kind of angelic form, I'm sure she would have wanted to know why. If Kaylee could have appeared in that courtroom, if Kaylee could have spoken for herself, I'm sure she would have wanted to know why. If Ethan could have, he would have wanted to know why. Why did you kill me? Why did you have to do this? Why did you take all of this away from me? Same thing with Zana. I think Zana would have wanted to know why. They would have wanted to know why. If you were killed, you would have wanted to know why. You would have wanted maybe other people to know why as well, so that this doesn't happen again. That's the point of the why, is to understand how criminal psychology evolves and it happens. And you know what I find so frustrating with true crime is someone is a psychopath and all the things that you say they are, as though they were that the moment they were born and when they were 5 years old and when their lives were happy and when their parents loved them and when things were going well. Really? They were psychopaths through their entire lives? Then if they were psychopaths in their entire lives, why didn't anybody notice? Why didn't someone say, well, we need to lock you up because you're a psychopath before you commit these crimes, right? And the reality is ordinary people at a certain point, and I'm not saying ordinary people are, everyone's the same, but ordinary psychology at a certain point becomes criminal psychology. And if you can't understand that, if you can't, and if you won't go back to that and figure out what causes that to happen, because that can actually happen to absolutely all of us. If you're stressed enough, if you're triggered enough, if you're miserable enough, if you're isolated enough, if you're humiliated enough, whatever it is, angry enough, filled with hate enough, it can happen to any of us. And so the failure to understand that person, to point your finger at someone else and say, well, it's you, it's you, it's you, and you blame someone else without the ability to see that evil is innate. All of us are not all good, and hopefully all of us are not all evil. And so that same thing where the judge said, speaking about another judge, he tries to think about the good in someone else. To think that Brian is all evil says something about him. It says something about you, right? And at the end of the day, we need to come through these horrible experiences and not become dark ourselves, not become evil ourselves. And if we're not willing to acknowledge and hold these realities accountable, then they are going to persist. They are going to repeat themselves. And then what are we going to say? Why the next time, and the next time, and the next time? Anyway, let's have a look at some of your additional comments. By the way, just again, thanks to Chelsea who's been here, who's been moderating. Thank you very much. Also, thanks to everyone for their super chats. Faticus, Christina, C-Piece, Tenus, Marinix, Rachel, Jeremy, and Christopher. I want to end off just by saying, when I started this live, I felt quite strongly, I don't want to be in the picture. I don't want this to be about me. I want this to be about focusing on what the victims are saying and their statements. And are we able to listen to that and focus on that, right? And I wonder whether other creators feel the same way, or do they want the focus to be on themselves? And I thought about that, and I was thinking probably for some people it helps to feel what they need to feel through other true crime creators, to get their sense of it, right? But to what extent does it not help where you're not doing the thinking you need to be doing? You're not doing the listening that you need to be doing. You're not doing the soul searching that you need to be doing. Because all of that is going to help you address the why in your own life. And think about, and that's what I want to leave you with. Is there a why in your own life that you need to think about? Is there something that you're doing that you're not sure if you should be doing? And I'm not necessarily saying it's good or bad, just that maybe it's not the best thing for you. Are you going down a road? It might be a job, it might be something that you're doing with your life, and it's not good or bad, it's simply what you're doing. Are you doing it for the right reasons? Is the why true to who you are, to your identity? And those are very difficult questions sometimes to ask, and even more difficult questions to answer. And the only way to do that is to be quiet and to sit with them and to think about them. And sometimes what helps us in that process is thinking about the whys of other people, whether they be criminal or not. We had that guy on the Jumbotron who was having an affair. And everybody noticed that. And yet, I'm not sure how many people are having affairs in America. Should you really be losing your job over there? Now, I know I'm straying a little bit, but what I mean with this is you need to, at some point, be introspective and ask yourself some of these questions. And the supreme amongst them is why. I mean, when you get up in the morning, what are you here to do? Why are you doing what you're doing? And you may think it's not such a big deal to ask now, but one day when you're much older, you're going to look back on your life and ask yourself, why? Why did I do that? Why didn't I do that? And to the extent that you can live a conscious, self-aware life, you'll be happy with it at the end of it, right? While you're living it. And if there's anything to take out of these crimes, young people who've lost their lives, as tragic as it is, I think it teaches us to hold on to our lives and to say what we have is precious. It can be taken away from us. There were a few people who said, you know what, I took her life for granted. Don't make that mistake with someone close to you, right? Looking at some of your comments, Susan, good to see you here. Richard. She's talking about the weather. Thanks for that, Chelsea. I'm going to just end off just by doing something really silly. I'm just going to put on screen what the purpose is of a victim impact statement. I know it's very like True Crime 101, but I think it's important just to address that. It's to allow victims of crime to express to the court and sometimes to the offender the impact the crime has had on their lives. Right? So I think when you can go into a lot of detail about who someone was and what you've lost, that is also telling why it's been so painful for you. And so that why, the why from the victim impact statement is also so crucial to hear because it allows catharsis, right? It provides physical, emotional, psychological, and financial consequences, right? And just think about that, where you have a victim impact statement where you say, you know what has happened to me physically? I've put on a lot of weight, or I've lost a lot of weight, or haven't been able to sleep, or I've had trouble breathing. And we heard some of the people saying that. I've been struggling with my emotions. I've been getting angry a lot. Or I don't feel anything. Right, I'm having difficulty with that. In terms of psychology, I don't know what to do anymore. I'm having a crisis of faith. I'm angry all the time. You know, I'm sometimes passive in my life. Sometimes I'm aggressive. Sometimes I'm prone to addiction. Right, all of that kind of thing. This is what has been the impact of this on me, and I'm struggling with it. That I can tell you is helping other people who in their own lives, maybe their traumas happened to them years ago, are trying to figure out their lives without even knowing it. This is helping them. And so every time you make a statement where you blame Brian and you call him names, that's fine. Maybe that's good for you, but it's helping other people when you talk about your struggles and your traumas and your difficulties, right? Maybe on the other hand, by calling Brian names, maybe there's catharsis for someone else who wanted to call their adulterous husband names, you know, maybe, but I personally doubt it because I think it brings that anger back to the surface. And I think the answer to trauma isn't hate and negativity and blaming. And I think the answer is love and forgiveness, right? I think a big part of what we saw today, thankfully not the biggest part, was blaming. And I think that's totally different to being accountable and to trying to understand and from a loving perspective. And interestingly, you did have people who said, Brian, if you want to tell me your story, tell me, and I forgive you. And I mean, that just showed another dimension to it. And then also financial consequences. You know, I've been through this trauma and I've lost a lot of money. I've lost my job. I don't know if you know, Brian's sisters both lost their jobs simply because Brian did what he did. I wouldn't be surprised if Brian didn't give a statement because his family said, please, this has hurt us so much, we needed to go away. I wouldn't be surprised if he accepted the plea deal because of what has happened to his own family. And I think no one has really thought about that aspect. Although one of the victims did actually mention it, you know, that Brian, this is what you've done to your family. And I think Brian is aware of that. It provides a voice for victims and allows them to participate. And again, what I think is truly important at the victim impact stage is where you allow a person who has died the chance to speak. You provide photos of them, words from their side, certain life lessons or certain sentiments that were unique to them. And I thought the grandmother did that in a particularly wonderful way, in a particular way that brought Maddie to life. And I think that is worth so much more than spitting and cursing and all of the rest of it. And there's something to me so ironic in this particular hearing, where at the moment that Steve stood up and he moved that altern to the side to address Bryan, from that moment on, everyone else that came after him was sort of sidelined. They were sort of, you couldn't really quite see them because the lectern had been moved kind of off screen. And I think that is, for me, symbolic of this thing where you allow your emotions to cloud what you're really there to begin with. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be emotional, you should be. And I'm not saying there are right emotions or wrong emotions, or what they are. I'm just saying it's interesting that from a symbolic sense, from the moment that he turned that lectern, everyone else after that was sort of cut off. You couldn't quite see them, right? And isn't this sentencing hearing about allowing everyone to be seen and heard? And yet that motion sort of kind of prevented that, which for me is very sad. It's very sad. I want to end off just by going through this. Giving victims a voice. It's a platform for victims to share their experiences and the profound effects of the crime. For me, what I would like to see in the victim impact statement is also something that they wished everyone knew. So about perhaps how they found out about the crime, how much damage it's done, something that you didn't know about Zana, something in terms of the evidence that perhaps people don't know. Informing the court helps the court understand the full extent of the crime's impact, not just the immediate physical or material damage. It's to promote justice, to help create a more inclusive and just legal system, so that the family feel like they are taking hands with the court and saying, this is what we want. And I don't know if you guys noticed, there were times where the judge was addressing some of the victims and they were already just walking away, right? And I must say, I did find it meaningful that the judge seemed moved by this and the prosecutor seemed moved by this. So I find it very interesting that the defense attorney seemed a lot like Bryan, unmoved, didn't show much emotion, didn't really seem to care. And quite interesting that you've got a woman sitting right beside Bryan, happy to defend him to the nth degree, right? It's quite, that in itself, I think, is something to think about. You think about how evil Bryan is, but Bryan had someone defending him vigorously defending him. And you might say, well, that is just the sign of a robust legal system. But I don't know. I think this case, the Idaho 4 case, I think requires America to maybe think about how it prosecutes cases. Do they need to take this long? Should they suck up so many resources? Should there be all these motions? Should an offense be allowed to be this vigorous? And then also how to, I'm sorry to say it, how to control the media and social media who participate in aggravating the crimes of the perpetrator through harassment, through all of these other things. If this case had probably gone to trial, I'm sure the social media would have been brought up, but it would have been drowned out by the cacophony of coverage around it anyway. I do think that for the first time, a lot of people watching have really experienced and felt the real trauma that the people very close to this felt. And for the first time, perhaps felt, wow, maybe while we've been just trying to find the evidence and all of this, maybe we've forgotten our own humanity in the face of these people who are truly innocent victims in this. So, yeah, overall, the Kohberger case I will remember as one where you saw the rabid interest of so many people in the true crime community. And I'm glad that I chose to step away from that. And I needed to do that. And that's not something I've often done, because I often feel like you need the stamina to see a case through to the end. Well, not when it's hurting people's lives, right? All right, I think that's all I want to say. Let's have a look at some of your comments. To promote justice. Right, if we look at the poll, let's have a look. Yeah, almost 2/3 of you say the purpose of victim impact statements isn't payback and it isn't to humiliate the offender. Do you think by humiliating the offender, you get healing? Okay, Chelsea, thanks for that. Thank you to you for being here. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys are enjoying the summer weather where you are here. It's still terribly, terribly cold. I think I'm going to end there. I don't know if there are any further comments or observations. Thanks, JC. Appreciate it. Anyone have any comments or questions or observations? Just want to again thank Christopher Marshburn for being here. As far as I'm aware, there is a very slight chance for a appeal. I remember the judge actually mentioning it, something just where he said, and appealing. And so I think there is I think it's not off the table, but it certainly is extremely unlikely at this point. I wouldn't be surprised if Kohberger changes his mind. He's got his whole life to struggle against where he is. And we know that Chris Watts did that. It didn't take Chris Watts more than a few months to investigate how to appeal. And of course, he wasn't able to. Laser says this has been a crazy case. All right, I think that's it from me. So I have posted a video recently on Air India. There have been 3 incidents just in the last 48 hours. So it's crazy what's happening there. I must say I'm getting quite a lot of pushback from some people in that particular case where they don't want to, they feel like, please don't ask why. Please don't think about this. Just wait till the investigation. And this is quite a good moment maybe to say this, because it's happened quite a few times. Please don't ask why. Please don't think about this. Wait until the trial. Then the trial happens, and guess what they say? We don't know why. We'll never know. Next case. And on and on and on and on and on. And, you know, I've said that this channel specializes not only in why, but in critical thinking. And if there's anything that can help you in your life and in figuring out why you're doing what you're doing or what you should be doing, it is to think critically constantly about what you're doing, not constantly, but certainly fairly often, and then go off and enjoy your life. But try and be a bit conscious, try to live consciously so that you don't wake up one day and be like, why did I spend 5 years doing that? Why did I waste 10 years on doing something I didn't really care about? Thinking about why is going to make you remember what you do care about. The other thing with Air India is someone was saying, you know, why on earth are you talking about mass murder? Who on earth deals with it like constantly like you are? Well, that's what we did with the Kohberger case. I've written books about profiling it, and it definitely isn't subject matter that I'd recommend. I definitely wouldn't recommend anyone else write a book on profiling mass murder. It takes you to really dark, unpleasant, painful places. But having been there, you can come back and hopefully try to address the human condition meaningfully and intelligently. But they are taking great exception to this idea that it could be a pilot could have done something, and he could have done something because he intended to do it, because he had a particular unknown right now set of circumstances that made him do what he did. And that's why it's important to at least ask the question why. Of course, you can ask the question why and say, wow, I can't find the answer. And in the case of the pilots, in this particular case, if you say, I can't find the answer why. Well, if you can't find the answer why, then maybe it wasn't intentional. Then maybe the pilot is innocent. But if you start asking the question why, and you start seeing there was depression, there was, he was being made fun of by his co-pilots, and they had a nickname for him, and somebody died in his family, and all these different things, then it starts to address things in an important way, where you might ask the same questions of other pilots. Are you depressed? Are you feeling like an outsider, right? Think about the whole BRYAN KOHBERGER thing, where you say, we don't really need to know why. And then you say, well, a pilot may have done something here, maybe, maybe not. Maybe we should find out why, because maybe this could happen with another pilot. And if it did, then a whole lot of other people, a whole lot of other innocent lives are lost as well, 260. Can we, and so the question then becomes, can we afford not to ask why? Hey? Can we afford not to ask why? Anyway, that is the, that's the premise of this channel. And so I hope that is useful to a lot of you, and I hope it is ultimately useful in and of itself. I'd like to believe it is. Okay, I'm also going to be posting another episode in the Chris Watts case, where we're going through the phone data review 7 years later, but with the benefit of perspective, thinking about what happened in the future in terms of that timeline, and the past, how the past is informing the moment. And what's so valuable with that is also, the whole time we're trying to ask, why did Chris Watts do what he did? Is this helping us to understand that? And as far as I'm concerned, Chris Watts isn't the sharpest tool in the shed. He's not the most interesting criminal I've ever studied. It's not a very interesting case. But that aspect, the incredible amount of detail we have, for example, in the phone data review, helped us to navigate that really important 5-6 week period before he committed what was almost like this case, quadruple murder, except that the Nico was still in utero. Otherwise, it would have been 4 victims. And so what is that about? That's also about asking the question, why? Trying to understand how ordinary psychology graduates to criminal psychology. But at the same time that we're doing that, we can better understand ourselves. To what extent are we dealing maladaptively with our own psychology? To what extent are we dishonest? To what extent are we addicted or interested in things that are going to have unhappy endings? To what extent do we need some self reflection, some introspection, right? And so some people don't see the value in it. I do. Hopefully some of you guys do too. So I'll be posting the next episode 4, I think, in that series a little bit later today. Thanks a lot, guys, for listening. Katsy says, crazy how, yeah, that's true. I agree with that. All right, that's it from me. Hope you guys are doing okay wherever you are in the world. Yeah, it's been a rare live for me. I'm not sure when I'll see you guys again live, but I don't really enjoy lives. I prefer to think about what is being dealt with and try and do it justice with, forethought and so on. Anyway, good to see some of you. Chelsea, again, thank you so much for being here. Take care, guys, and I'll see you guys next time. Ciao.